about a month or two to value the assets. You could do a partial and say, I'll worry about my cash assets later and do a final, but I'm just going to do a partial right now so I can get it off to the probate referee. This is done a lot, and I can see it both ways. But when I am doing an accounting, because I do several, but I do an extremely high-end accountings mostly. Um, so if get an inventory and appraisal from somebody and the partial is marked, I know instantly in my head I have to ask for a second one because a partial tells me only part of the assets are reported. So I need all the assets if I'm going to do an accounting. So to me, if this box is marked, I'm asking, okay, where's the final? Where's a second partial? Where is the other assets? If they tell me, hey, I haven't accounted for them yet, I stop the accounting because I can't go any further. And I say, okay, you handle that part and then bring it back to me. Um, so final means you've listed everything. There is no more, nothing more. You're done. That's all there is. Typically, when I see a final, sometimes you have to be careful. I do them for many other firms, but you're doing them for your own case. Um, I need to know if a partial was issued first and then a final, or if I have all of my assets on the final. That can get a little tricky, but I do ask the question. Then you have a supplement. So, say for instance, you turn in a final inventory or appraisal and you say, these are all my assets, I have nothing more. But later, discover, oh, geez, there's a safe deposit box, or oh, geez, there's another stock account, or oh, geez, there were bonds I didn't know about, or something just came up. There was a coin collection you found in a box you thought was trash. I don't know. It could be, anything of that nature. If you've already submitted a final, you would then mark your new inventory and appraisal supplement, meaning you're just adding this asset to the estate because you already turned in the final and now you need to add the supplement. So you have to be very careful that you have all of your inventory and appraisals before you can start your accounting. So I'm really checking these boxes, seeing what box is marked and seeing where you're at when I'm preparing an accounting. A corrected. Say, for instance, I reported in the bank on the date of death, and I'll get further into that in just 1 second on what day you use. But I'm looking at a bank statement and I accidentally, maybe I transposed numbers. Maybe I said the bank account balance was 57,844.95 instead of 59, right? Then I look at the bank statement and I go, oh, wait a minute. I'm off already. I haven't even started and I'm off 40 some cents or 30 whatever cents, right? I would instruct, if I was doing an accounting for someone else, I would instruct them to file a corrected inventory and appraisal because I cannot be off balance before I even start. I'm never going to get the same balance. So I will tell them you need to file a corrected and state that the balance on the date of death appointment is 57,844.59. And then that corrected will go to the court and they'll understand it also. And then once I see the corrected, I could start up again. Reappraisal for sale, please don't worry about this much. This has to do with, and this gets complicated. If you're in a probate, you were only given limited authority and you have a house to sell, and the date of death was more than a year ago, then you need to do a reappraisal for sale, which means send it back to the probate referee and get a value within 1 year so that the judge knows what is the value of this home, so that when offers come in and the judge has the hearing on approving a sale, he or she can say, okay, the house was appraised at 500,000. We have an offer of 495. It's still within the 90% range, and we can proceed with the sale. So that's the only time that you would mark this box right here. And property tax certificate, I've not seen one of these marked, but I understand it's for property taxes and has to do with that. So please don't, you likely would never mark this box. Any questions on just this section or what I've covered so far? Okay, moving forward. Okay, this is the hardest date, and it's the hardest to understand, and it's the one that will screw you up the most. Trust me, it will screw you up the most. Is this date right here. If you will read the box, it says it's either the date of death if you have a probate, or date of appointment if you have a guardianship and conservatorship. Now, that can get a tiny bit confusing because you'll have a hearing that the judge orders and says, okay, I appoint you administrator. In some cases, the judge will say, but you have to present a $20,000 bond or any nomination of a bond. So you'll go out, you'll fill out an application for a bond, you'll have to wait till it gets approved, then you'll sign documents, then the bond will be given to you, then you're filing it, then you're getting your letters. Sometimes that can be a day later, sometimes that can be a week later, it could be a month later. I've seen it 6 months later. It can be a very long amount of time, right? This date right here is the date you had the hearing and the judge ordered you administrator, conservator, guardian. It could be conservator of the estate, conservator, guardian of the estate, guardian, conservator of the person and estate, any of those titles. You need to make sure you put the date of appointment. This will be looked at, one, by the probate referee when you turn in your accounting, and this would really throw off everything if you don't have the date accurate. Again, the day you go to the hearing to be appointed, if you were appointed at that hearing, that's the date you will use, no other date. So in our case, we have March 8th, 2012. Any questions on this date? Because it's really important if you get it wrong. Okay, we're moving down. Next is going to be the appraisal part, and one of the very important things of your accounting. This starts your accounting. Without this information, you cannot even do an accounting. So the first line here is appraised by you, who is either the personal representative, which is the administrator, and it has to do with probate, or you're the guardian, has to do with minor, or you're the conservator, which has to do with the conservatee. So attachment 1 is the first attachment. And that is valued by you based on this line right here. So I'm going to switch over to attachment 1 to show you what it will look like or what it could look like. Notice that, let me go back. I'm so sorry. Remember the form DE 160? Your attachments will be a DE 161. So it bumps up just one. you will continue to put this name up top, and you will include the case number. Now, this will be blank, so you need to indicate it's attachment 1, because that instantly tells the court it was valued by you. No probate referee, you. And I'm going to go through samples of things that would be on attachment 1. So the first line item, it's very typical, especially with a conservatorship of an older person, that they have cash on them. Older people they want cash. They want to see it. They want to feel it. They want to have it in their wallet. They want it. Whereas, let's say the younger generation, I do not fall under that category of the younger generation, but our younger generation, everything is either cell phone, which is Apple Pay, or their debit cards, ATM cards. They've got a card of something. Ask them for cash at any given time, and 9 times out of 10, that young person will not have even a penny on them of cash. We all know this, right? It's different level of how we've all evolved. But the older people always have cash. I don't care if the cash is in an envelope in a nylon drawer and they haven't worn nylons in 50 years. I don't care if it's in an underwear drawer. It could be in a bra drawer. Especially women, we like to hide things there, but I don't want to tell our secrets, right? It could be in a shoe. It could be in an old purse. It could be, okay, I could go on and on. Men like to do somewhat the same thing. You find men also hide money in their underwear drawer. It could be the sock drawer. It could be, it's their drawer. It could be their junk drawer that's in the drawer of the dresser. It could be anywhere, right? Give you an example. It could also be in, let's just say, my father had tons of very big old coffee cans that had stuffed with pennies, nickels, dimes, you name it, more pennies than anything. And so that is considered cash. If you become a conservatee, now let me say for a guardianship, you would not find that, because a guardianship means it's over a minor. A minor's not supposed to have cash, or typically they don't have cash. So that would typically would not be the case that you would have cash. So it is your responsibility to account for every asset that the person has or had. So if it's a decedent, what did they have the day they passed away? If it's a conservatorship, what did they have when I was appointed and I'm responsible for it now? It's very important, and I know it seems kind of silly, that maybe it's your mom. And why do I got to account for my mom's cash? That's her business. No, it's not her business anymore. It became yours when you got appointed. So you do account for that cash. And remember, other beneficiaries, if there are any, or other grandchildren or children or spouses or whatever, they are watching all of this. They're looking at all of this. So just keep that in mind. So at the time, I would not indicate the conservatee's resident. That is not necessary. I myself would just say cash. Literally, that's all I'd write, cash. And then I would indicate the dollar amount. It could be pennies if you wish, but typically I keep it round up, round down, depending if it's under 50 cents or over 50 cents. This is one of the hardest parts, balance in the checking account. Please, I cannot stress this enough every time I do this or show a class, do not ever indicate the entire account number. You only indicate the last 4 or 5 digits. This is very important because this document can be viewed by anybody. It's public information. If you go off and give that conservatee's account number, that anybody could try to fraud it or do something with, you've now put that conservatee, in jeopardy of fraud. So please, only the last 4 or 5 digits of the account number. The court will understand what you're doing. And if you do indicate the full account number, you may get a pretty ugly examiner note that says, do not ever do that in the future. You've just jeopardized the account because you've listed it now and anybody can get a hold of this. I typically do not do mine this way. I will put balance in checking account, Wells Fargo bank number 4655. I don't put the address of the bank. I don't even know the address of the bank most of the time. So that's not necessary. Even though a person may live, let's say Napa, where I live, my bank account could be in Concord, where I was born and opened it, right? So I don't know where the bank account is. So don't be concerned with this. Just put the bank name and the account number. Now, it's very important that you look at a bank statement and you find out what was the balance on the day you were appointed. So here's a quick question. Whoever's first to unmute gets to answer. What is the date of appointment? Somebody's got to answer. You got to unmute yourself.
That's when the judge in court identifies you as
Okay, I've shown you the page. What's your date of appointment?
date of appointment's March 8th, right? 2012.
March 8th, 2012. You're correct. Ding, 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 winner. So make sure you look at the bank statement and you find out the balance on March 8th. Banks have now made it a whole lot easier where they give a daily running balance on the right side of bank statements. I love that, and it's so easy. There are many banks, though, or if you do look at an older bank statement, you do not have running balances. So there are times, sorry, that you get a bank statement that goes through from March 1st to March 31st, and there's deposits and withdrawals, and you're like, I don't know what the balance is on March 8th. You have to be a little bit tricky in it to where you go, okay, I need to add in all the deposits that happened before March 8th, not ones after, just before. And then I need to deduct expenses that happened before March 8th. And then I will get a balance. The other thing you could do is go to the bank and ask, tell me what the balance was on March 8th, 2012. That will be difficult with 2012 because they don't hold records that far back. But if it was a different date, you could walk in and say, hey, I need to know the balance on that date. So you want to make sure, because the first thing I'm looking at when I'm doing an accounting is I verify this balance is correct based on the bank statement. So many other things you can add. Savings account, same as checking. A CD, same kind of as checking. I don't indicate where it is, who owns it, and all that. I will just put the certificate number. Now, it is unlikely that you'll have uncashed checks, but you could. So remember, when you get appointed, it is your responsibility to go to the conservatee's house and look at what mail has been opened or not opened. Look to see if there's uncashed checks. It could have been a refund. It could have been some of your stock accounts give dividends via check. It could be it could be your granddaughter gave a check and never deposited, things like that. You want to make sure you indicate, hey, it hasn't been deposited yet, but I'm going to deposit it, but I do have a check. And in this case, it was listed as a pension check. Pensions are now direct deposited. And I don't think I really ever see a pension check that's issued in a check form anymore, but it could. Um, so I'll indicate what the check amount was. Now, same thing with Social Security. They do direct deposit, so you really won't get an uncashed check, but you could. So that's listed here. And then again, a dividend check listed here. There are a couple um, other samples that you can think of. Again, I used the coffee can. My dad had a whole huge coffee can, pennies. I was not going to count every single penny in that coffee can. I'd still be here counting it. Not like that tedious stuff. There's no way. I had to do like an estimate of what I believed if I took pennies and I tried to figure out how many pennies. An estimate. I did my best because of the time, and that's really tedious stuff. Um, so there could be things of that nature, but that is the only thing you would have on attachment one, cash. There's no question about it. If it's anything other than cash, it does not go here. It goes on a different attachment. So again, cash. That's it. Cash. You will, at the bottom of the form, put the total amount. So you will add everything you have. You may have one line item. You may not have any cash. And if that's the case, I still complete this attachment one. I will put 0 in this line item. I will put 0.00 in this line item because that tells the court I didn't skip it. I didn't mean to come back to it. I didn't leave it blank because I was still researching or trying to figure out. If I put 0 here and 0 here, that indicates I know I have no cash. And then I would put 0 down here. So now that we have this total of our attachment 1, we're going to take this total and we're going to go back to the inventory and appraisal. And guess what? See what number we have here? Magic, right? Total magic. We created that magic. So that is our number we're going to leave here. It could be 0, remember? But I would not write the word 0. Some do. I put 0.00 and move on. So you would put 0 here. Any questions on attachment 1? I'm doing good timing. I got 20 minutes left. Any questions? Attachment 1? Okay. Attachment 2 is a little bit harder, guys. Now, attachment 2 can only be appraised by the probate referee. Many people are going to think, and you're thinking right now, how do I know who my probate referee is? Okay, remember when back here I say on your date of appointment, there will be an order. If it's a decedent's estate, that order is a DE 140. If it's a guardianship or conservatorship, I think it's a GC 240 or a 340. Don't quote me on those numbers. I just don't remember real quick. But they're on the order. You will, on a DE 140, at the very bottom, right before the judge signs and dates it, there will be a place for a probate referee, and it'll either be stamped, like the probate referee stamp is here, Sometimes it'll list their name, address, phone number. Sometimes it'll just have their name, or they'll handwrite in the name of the probate referee. On the GC 240 or 340, don't quote me on the number, but in that case, the probate referee is listed up higher up in the top section portion of it. If you still don't see or recognize the probate referee, you would have to go back to the court or call the court, or I don't think you might be able to call, and ask who the probate referee is assigned to the case. So, well, let's go to what goes on attachment 2. Again, this will be a completely blank form. You'll notice it's the same form number as attachment 1. So it's same form number, but instead of you putting 1 here, you will put the number 2. Then this one gets a little bit more details because you're sending it off to somebody else to value the property, right? So we need to give more details than just cash in a bank account or something of that nature. So a first sample would be real property. They own real property. I like to put as much details as possible. I have the ability to run deeds, so I can give a legal description, but most of you would not have that information available. So again, just try and give as much details as you can. So real property in the city of Newport Beach, County of Orange, State of California, and then again, this is all the legal description. If you don't have it, don't worry about it. Put, again, as much details as you can. You would know the city, the county, the state. Then you would know the address, so commonly known as, and the APN number. If you need an APN number for a property, there's several places that you could go get that. You could do a property tax lookup in the county that the property is in. That would give you an APN number, or if you really just can't figure it out, leave it blank. I'm sure the probate referee will still, by the address, be able to find the property, and they will likely add the APN number on there. And as you notice, you will leave this blank. It is not up to you to value the property. It is up to the probate referee. And they absolutely know, even if I was turning it in today, they will value it as of this date. They will go back that far in time. They will value it as of that date. Okay, in this case, there was also a vacation home, very similar to the real property. You could list household furniture and furnishings. Typically, I want you to use the whole thought. If the furniture and items in the house of this nature are pretty old, worn, tattered, had been around for a very long time, their value is pretty much nothing. I mean, the value to like the conservator is $1 million. If you ask them, I just know they'll say, my sofa is worth $1 million. I love that sofa. Or my recliner is worth, it's not even a value. That thing, that's where I nap. That's where I love that chair, right? But to the outside world, or to, if I was going to sell it, I'm not going to get, definitely not $1 million, or I want that chair. But it's going to have very little value. So sometimes I'll indicate the furniture and furnishings if it's a bigger house, if it's newer furniture. The value you're going to get from a probate referee is about $500 for the whole house. It's not going to be a whole lot, but you can list the furniture. Shares, please be very careful with this is the most difficult part. If these shares in Safeguard are for 1,425 shares, and that's only share you own, that's great. You can do it this way, but that's not typical. Typically, they have 10 different shares. They've got Apple, they've got Microsoft, they have, I don't know, Tesla. I'm naming all the ones I don't like. Tesla, they have, Starbucks, but I do like Starbucks. They have a whole bunch of different shares that group up into a total. You have to list each share separately. Typically, what I also like to do for the probate referee is each share will have a initial or a what is on the New York Stock Exchange, what their kind of acronym. And I like to list that for the probate referee. But be careful, do not group shares because each Apple is a totally different price than Walmart, or Apple could be a totally different price than Microsoft, or, so you cannot lump them. You have to separate them. And trust me, I have done, oh my gosh, not that long ago, I had treasury bonds. Were they treasury bonds? They were bonds. And they had probably 1,500 treasury bonds. Do you know I had to list line by line by line? That thing was like 25 pages long. My eyes were crossed. I had to list the details of the series EE numbers. I, I prayed through that whole thing. So it can be daunting, but you have to separate them out. Do again, this is my example. You cannot list 7 US savings bond. You cannot do it. I know the sample says you can, but you cannot. It would be one 100 US saving bond series EE issued, one 100 US savings bond series EF, or whatever the next number is, because no savings bond has the exact same number for all seven, and maybe it was issued a different date. So do not lump them. Lastly, a diamond wedding ring. I tell this story every single time I have this class. So again, say for instance, dad gave mom when they originally started dating, a little 1 carat wedding ring because that's all they could afford at the time. She still has that. But then later, dad bought her a 3 carat as an anniversary gift for 25 years or something. And so now she has a second one. You want to list them both separately. Um, and it's very important that you do so. Um, and here is the reason, and I use the example every single time. In a probate, there was a will, but it still went through probate because there was real property. So in the will, grandma gave one of her grandsons the 1 carat and a separate grandson the 3 carat. Well, the administrator who got appointed was the mom of the grandson that was going to get the 1 carat. And so there was a separate one that was going to get the 3 carat. She says it was an error. Whether it was or not, that's not for me to determine. But the administrator ended up giving her son the 3 carat and went to give the other grandson the 1 carat. Well, the grandson who got the 3 carat proposed to a woman with it. And after the fact, and it all got settled, I mean, it all went through the court, and the other grandson said, whoa, this doesn't look like what this will says, a 3 carat, this is tiny, and so on and so forth. It came out that then the administrator said, "Oh, I mixed them up." And so, yes, I gave my son the 3 carat, and he had to go get it back from his fiance, give it back, and give it to the grandson who was supposed to get it in the first place. So just be careful, or you may indicate on here, which I'd have trouble because I'm not a diamond person. That's not important to me. So I don't know if I would know the difference between a 1 and a 3. I guess if they were together, I'd say one is bigger than the other, but I couldn't tell you if it was 3, 2, 4, or 6. I don't know. I just don't know those things. And so be very careful because other people, other beneficiaries are watching this and going, many times I've seen where they've come back and go, "You forgot that she also has a horse in the backyard," or "You forgot she also has a collectible car that's in the garage," or "You forgot she also has diamond studded stilettos." Can you imagine grandma with diamond studded stilettos? But anyway, um, it could be anything. You want to kind of list what people feel are valuable items, so you indicate, "Look, this is all I see." Or there's been times where somebody collects a lot of paintings, and you put each painting on there, and then a grandchild came back and said, "Wait a minute, there's a painting of, I don't know, a famous painter, and I don't see it on this list." Then it doesn't mean you're trying to hide anything. That means you better go see if you can find that painting and go, "Okay, I really looked. I don't see it. Maybe it was given away before I, took over." But at least you looked, and you can give, if you had to testify under court in front of the judge, you could honestly say, "Yeah, a grandchild brought it up. I went looking for it. I didn't see it. So I think it was given away," or "We don't know because maybe, well, grandma passed away, or even maybe grandma is incapacitated at this point. She doesn't remember the painting." Um, but at least you did for that beneficiary. You said, "Okay, I promise I'll go look. I'll see if I can find it. And if I do, I'll do a new inventory and record it." So you will leave all the numbers blank. You will list this. You will leave this blank down here. You will wait. I only got 8 minutes. For the probate referee, you will send this form off to the probate referee, and you will get down to, you won't sign it and stuff like that. And the probate referee will write his value here, his or her value here, and give a total. Okay, completing the rest of the form, which I'm going to go faster through. Number 3 is you are stating all of the property if you're marking it a final. It's only a portion if you're marking it a partial.
I had a question when it gets to the sale of the property for your first, let's say you sell the property and then you have to list it on your first accounting. Sometimes like the probate referee will list the assumed value, right? So let's say just like 205,000. But once you actually sell it and you go through escrow, that number goes down to like 56,000 because you still owe the bank, you still owe
Correct.
the title
Honey,
company, the
we
broker.
go into huge detail of that in
Okay.
Rex's section, and he'll get through doing that and how you
Okay.
would record all that. I
Okay.
promise we're getting there.
Yep.
Okay, number 4 is if you didn't need a probate referee, like you don't have a house, you don't have anything that has to be valued, it was only cash, you would mark you don't need a probate referee, or you're going to mark this box right here, and it says by order of the court. Remember the form number? DE 140 that put the name of the probate referee. You will put the date that that form is signed by the judge. Down in number 5, if you do not have any real property, you would mark A. If you have a real property, you will mark B. A is no real property. That is land. That is not a mobile home. That is, unless that could get tricky, but it's typically not the mobile home. It's land, real property. So A is no real property. B is real property. Come down to date. You have a line where you would date it. You do not date or sign this until it comes back from the probate referee. Do not do it. You want this blank when it goes to the probate referee. When it comes back from the probate referee and they've done their thing, then you date it and you sign it. Moving down, you need to mark box 6 if the bond was waived, so the court did not order a bond. You will mark 7 if the court did order a bond and you had to file a bond, and you will put the amount of the bond. So I have a quick question for everybody. We have 2 boxes here, sufficient or insufficient. So my balance, let's just use this for example. I have no attachment to property, so this number is also my total. My balance in the cash account, or accounts plural, is 57,844.59. The court ordered a $20,000 bond. Would I mark box sufficient or would I mark the box insufficient?
Sufficient.
Sorry, you answered. Who answered?
Sufficient.
Okay. A little bit wrong, sweetheart. My bond is only 20,000. My cash is 57,000.
Oh, that says 5-7. I thought that was a dollar sign in front of the 7.
Sorry.
Sorry.
57. Am I
Okay.
marking sufficient or insufficient?
Insufficient.
Insufficient, because my bond does not cover my cash,
Of course, yes.
right?
Yes, yes.
We need to make sure the bond covers the cash, because sometimes cash flies away. I don't know how or why, or the whole it's magic. It's something. But cash flies away, and if it does fly away and nobody knows where it went or what happened to it, this bond, the judge will be able to go back to the bond and say, hey, you need to replace the cash that flew away. So you always want to make sure. Now, just because you mark the box insufficient doesn't mean you're in trouble, doesn't mean the judge is mad at you, doesn't mean anything. Likely they'll ask you to increase your bond. That would be the only situation, right? You're not getting in trouble. Now, the last box could be marked if there is money in a blocked account. If you have a guardianship and you have a minor cannot inherit till they reach the age of 18 or 18 and they do not have a limited conservatorship, a special needs trust, or anything of that nature, meaning they're really don't understand the value of money. Money can be in a blocked account, and you would mark this box and say, my child inherited $200,000. I put it in a blocked account, Wells Fargo Bank, account number 1234. And so the court then knows your inventory and appraisal includes money that's in a blocked account. No one can touch it without court order, so they really don't need to worry much about it. Then down here, you're talking again, you will not date it until it comes back from the probate referee, and then you would sign it here. Page 2, again, you need to repeat the name up here. You need the case number. You need to mark it if it's a decedent, a conservatorship, or a minor account. And the probate referee is the only one who will complete this page 2, unless there is no probate referee and this is left blank. Probate referee will tell you what his fees are for the job he did or she did, what the expenses are, which typically include mileage, photocopies, if they had to order maps, if they had to do any of that, and they will indicate the total value of what they charged you for this inventory and appraisal. They will date it, they will print their name here, they will sign it, they will return it to you. That is what you need to be able to start your accounting. If you don't have this process done first, you cannot do an accounting. You can't. It's impossible. So it's very important that this part of the form is complete, it's accurate, and you've done everything you can, because you take all the information from here and go now over to your accounting and start your accounting. Are there any questions? I ended right on time. All right, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So in really highly complicated estates with lots and lots of assets like an active businesses and such, um
I don't suggest you do it.
yeah, okay.
I suggest you use somebody that is skilled and really knows how to do it, because even for somebody like me who
Mhm.
does very high end complicated accountings for many, many law firms,
Sure.
I can get stuck on putting things together and wrapping my head around getting it, good, and I can have hard time with it. Now, I've been called as a witness on my accountings where I've had to go to court to testify. I also am hired by law firms to review other people's accountings, and I've had to testify, in court on in those cases also.
Sure.
Um, so someone who is newer in doing it and getting your feet wet, especially if it's a conservatorship, let somebody else do the first one, and then you taking over the
Sure.
second time it's due, you've got it nailed, because you're
Right.
just copying the ending balance going forward, and you're like, ha, 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 I got this now,
Okay, okay.
and you're
Yeah.
smooth, girl. You're good. So in that case, I would allow somebody else to do the first one, and you pick up second and going forward, because it's piece of cake.
Sure. And business professional like a CPA?
CPAs typically do not know how to do court accountings. You would
Okay.
have to search for somebody like me or somebody else on the internet that knows how to do and has done court accountings. I really don't.
Fiduciary, like professional fiduciary, possibly?
They typically hire somebody like me. Also, typically you'll find a legal document assistant knows how to do them.
Okay.
Be very leery and ask questions. Law firms typically know how to do it, although I do it for many, many, many law firms. They just don't want to pay their staff for that tedious type of work.
Got it.
Um, so you would just have to do some searching on probate court accountings, conservatorship court accountings. There are quite a few professional firms out there. I'd ask them how long they take, how long they've done this, have they testified in court, how many accountings get rejected or approved or something like that. Just do your due diligence.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome, honey. Bonita.
Yes, good morning. The probate referee advised me in a guardianship of the estate only situation,
Uh-huh.
advised that I do not list a direct payment to the parent of the beneficiaries who received, I'm sorry, I didn't say what he received. They received a direct payment of their father, the decedent's final paycheck, vacation, all of that. It went straight to the parent. And so
That's correct. You
that's
would
correct.
not do that. You would only list what the minor received, honey.
Okay, great. And then going forward, Social Security benefits, I know there's a public benefits statement that they don't get included, but I didn't know how to think about the Social Security benefits. Do I need to account for that as well?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
that's
ma'am.
something
Yes.
that I'm going to be covering in the expenses and income.
Okay, excellent. I'll wait for that then. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. I'm gonna switch this back to making host. And so I will be back in an hour and I will see you all then.
Bye-bye.
Rex, you okay? All you have to do is go down to share and say share my screen.
Oh, okay. Let me just get the details. Sharing is not turned on.
Down at the bottom there will be.
I see that, but it says the host is not allowing sharing for this meeting. Did you transfer me back as host?
You are host.
And hit chat, view profile, chat, and pin.
At
I'm
the
not.
bottom where you see participants chat, react, and share, you can't say share my, hit that button and say share my screen.
When I hit that, it says sharing is not turned on. The host is not allowing sharing for this meeting. And I just was doing it a moment ago. Okay, you didn't transfer. Now I'm the host.
I did
So,
transfer.
okay, it didn't connect is what happened. I don't know, software glitch or something. There we go. Do we see, everybody see summary of account?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Then we're all on the same page. Okay, so Tamara did the inventory and appraisal. I'm going to do the accounting worksheets, and then Tamara's going to come back in an hour and talk about the petition to get your accounting approved. My section is all forms and columns and things like that. Since I was a CPA for many, many years before I became a lawyer, that's why I started this class, is that very few CPAs know how to do court accounting. And you have to be careful as a fiduciary if you hire someone to do the accounting and they don't know what they're doing, you might end up having to pay for it when their reports are rejected and you have to hire somebody that does. So my recommendation to you is uh, when you're going to hire somebody to do fiduciary accounting, ask them for a sample of something they actually did so you can say, hey, this looks like the format. Or if it looks like a corporate accounting, no. You can't do it. Because in CPA school, I mean, I've got a degree in accounting and management, and they never covered, they didn't breathe a word of this kind of accounting. And it's all across the country, but everything we do is on the California probate code. And when you're dealing with you have a court accounting, and then you have to do a fiduciary income tax return for a trust or an estate, it doesn't automatically transfer to the tax input because the tax is governed by federal law and this court accounting is governed by state law. So it doesn't transfer directly. It's a different series of assumptions. So what we're looking at here is the most important form in court accounting. This is like a bicycle wheel with spokes in the center, and this is the axle. Everything spins off of this form. It's called the GC 400 sum, meaning summary. And for guardianship and conservatorship, you can call it 405 sum. It shows all the income coming in, all the income going out, what you're ending up with at the end. And we'll go into this in great detail. But the first thing about it is that this form, in California, we have the California Supreme Court. Directly below the California Supreme Court is the Judicial Council. And then below that is the administrative offices of the court. Well, the Judicial Council adopts forms and other rules all courts have to follow. And this form is adopted for mandatory use for all probate, guardianships, conservatorships, and for all trusts who are turning in their accounting for approval. So we're going to be covering a whole lot of forms today. All of them are for optional use. They are official forms, but you could also supplant, instead of using the government form, an adequately constructed Excel spreadsheet for the forms. Now, there's another type of account. It says standard and simplified. Simplified, I'm not going to talk about. It looks more like a paper check register, and it's only used for guardianship, conservatorships, or when there's like 4 to 5 transactions a year. I'm not going to waste your time explaining it. I don't like it. I won't use it. The other part of the form that is important for this class is in the lower left of the form, there's 4 zeros and a 21. In your materials, we refer to this as page 21. And if you have a paper version, you might want to put a yellow sticky note on the side, because we're going to be turning back to this form many, many times during this presentation. So, and we'll refer to ignore the page numbers like D12. You want to get the page numbers with the 4 zeros and the 21. That's our reference point. Okay, so what's our challenge here? Perfection, of course, but this is the form that tells which account you're doing. Is it the first time you've ever done an account? When you're first appointed, after 90 days, you have to do your first account, and then you go annually after that, every other year. So you end up doing an accounting on year 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 during an extended trust or extended probate. You say which number you have is the first accounting. It's account current. It's not the final. You check the final when you have a petition to terminate and close out the probate. You go from the date you were appointed to the day before a year later for your year on doing this report. The form is set up. It says guardianship or conservatorships. If it's probate, just write the word probate up here and put your case number. If it's a trust, just write the word trust and put your case number in the upper right. The form starts out with the major parts, cash flow and cash disbursements, but they don't use regular English. They use terms to confuse everyone. Why, I don't know. But the assets and income side is called charges. And it's contrary to what you would think about a credit card, because that's money you owe. In this case, it's what you've been given and what you're responsible for. So if you think of charges, it's responsibility. The court's holding you responsible. If any of this money's not accounted for, you'll end up with personal liability to the to the court for any funds that are missing. And I do a lot of income tax. I've been doing tax now for 50 years. We don't use pennies. IRS doesn't want them. But this is a California court form, and you still have to use pennies to describe the funds that you've received. Now, we have these numbers, cash assets, non-cash assets. So, and we're doing the first account. So you'll take these two line items from the inventory and appraisal, the GC 160 and 61 that Tamara just spoke about, and you'll put your cash on line 1A, and you'll put your non-cash on line 1B. There's a term used in court accounting called carry value. Carry value means what the value of the asset was when you were appointed. So that does not change. Like say you have a big stock portfolio, the carry value does not change every year as the market fluctuates. It's going to be the same for that asset. And then we get the total assets at the beginning of the period. And now your challenge is, okay, how do I account and report to the court for all the income that came in during the year? Well, this is a fairly short list of categories. The first one is additional property. So received during the account period. Say you didn't know that let's just use a decedent's probate, that the decedent had another bank account at Wells Fargo. And now you know about it, but it was not on your initial inventory and appraisal. So you would show that on a schedule and list the total here on line 2. Then receipts during the period. Any money that came in, and it says here Schedule A, but that's kind of a misnomer because Schedule A is really a group of other schedules. So think of this like an internet link that there might be a 1A, an A1, an A2, A3, A4 with, as we get into them, they have different names, whether it's for interest income, rental income. We'll cover all the details, but these are a synthesis of the transactions during the entire year. Gains on sale, this frequently will come from two places. One, from stockbroker's report or an IRS form 1099-B, could also come from a final closing statement on a real estate sale. Other charges, we have schedules for that. Any kind of miscellaneous expense that you don't have another category for. And then the net income from a trade or business. If the decedent had a trade or business, fortunately, you don't have to do the business accounting from that entity. All you have to do is take the net income from the accountant, the CPA, and enter that in. All the rest of the details are not your problem. Then we get into the total charges, which are basically assets that came through. And then we switch and turn it to what went out for the credits. The disbursements during the account period, Schedule C. And there's a lot of different Schedule C1, C2, C3 with different purposes and category labels. Losses on sales, those would be like capital transactions. We mentioned stocks and real property. Distribution to conservatee or ward, that you gave the ward money. Other credits, this would be the miscellaneous section. And then we have losses from a trade or business, the CPA's income statement again. And then we go through at the end, cash available or assets available at the end of the account. This is like the same kind of format or information that we did on the inventory and appraisal. So you total up all the cash on the closing date. In this case, it's March 7th, 2013. And you list your non-cash assets that carry value. Again, starting from the beginning inventory and appraisal, this is equivalent to an ending inventory and appraisal each year. And then you get the total of the assets at the end. Now you'll add them up, and line 7, total charges, is supposed to total line 14, the total credits. If it does not balance, don't even bother turning it into the court, because if it's a penny off, they were not going to accept it. So you have to be real careful on having the correct numbers. And the court doesn't like it if you just make up a fudge factor. Oh, we're off $200. Well, we just change it here. No, that's not an appropriate way to do the fiduciary accounting. Since I'm kind of old school doing accounting, I have an adding machine with a tape, and I suggest you check your addition every time before you use a total number, rather than spending hours and hours trying to find out where your error was in your addition. You hit 9.6 instead of 6.9, and now the thing's off, and you spend 14 hours trying to find it. And I know a lot of people are not using adding machine tapes anymore, but you can do it on your telephone or on your computer. It shows the detail of what you did the data entry for. So that's an overview of the summary of account for a standard account. Another feature that I want to point out to you is on the lower left on page 121, and they are on all the forms, but on the lower right, it says probate code section 1060 and some other numbers, California Rules of Court 7.575. And what these are, they're references or citations for you that you say, I don't really understand what this is. What do they really mean? What's the definition of credit or charge? You can go to those code sections and look it up. Tamara kind of kids me about this section that, oh, nobody's going to look at that and they wouldn't understand it anyway. But I kind of disagree because I do a lot of IRS work, and the Internal Revenue Code you cannot understand most of the time. But the probate code, they frequently write it in English that is more common English that's understandable. Okay, so moving along.
I had a question
Sure.
about the top form.
Yes.
I understand how we derived at the cash assets of 57,000. The non-cash assets, let's say over the course, I think if you scroll up a little bit, it was for like a 1 year period. Let's say you accumulating like pension and paychecks, right? Where does that information go?
Okay, I'm going to cover income first, all the sub-schedules. So I'm going to cover that answer in great detail.
Okay.
But basically, what we have, there's let's say we're looking at a time cartoon and we're seeing time go by on the screen.
Mhm.
And what this says is, oh, on March 8th, 2012, these two line items, 1A and 1B, are like a snapshot,
Mhm.
freeze action.
Yep.
Okay. And then over time, as the screen's going through and moving, this is what is moving in, and this is what is moving out. And then when you get to the end of the account, March 7th, at the end, these two lines, 13A and B, are again a snapshot.
Mhm.
So things that came in that are still there, liquid assets are going to be in your cash list. If you acquired non-cash assets, those are going to be on line 13B for your non-cash. It's identical to what Tamara was speaking about in the inventory and appraisal.
Mhm.
But I hope that helps explain it a little better.
Oh yeah, no, it does. It's crystal clear. But I guess my question is, uh, I have confusion on net income from trade or business. So income, I assume is just like the
Okay.
yeah coming in, right?
Net income from trade or business
Mhm.
can come in basically, uh, if there's a trade or business, it's not accounted for in this format. Generally, there'll be a CPA involved and they have an income statement with revenue at the top and expenses by category. If
Mhm.
you are familiar with income tax, it could look like a Schedule C, an
Mhm.
IRS Form 1040 Schedule C. What
Mhm.
is the net income? But it's contemplated here that someone else is doing the income statement and you're taking the net income.
Mhm.
And if you are the one doing this is business accounting.
Mhm.
So this class is all about fiduciary accounting on a
Okay,
different system.
I see.
This net income from trade or business is exactly what they teach you in accounting school. And
Mhm.
every CPA should be able to do that for you.
No problem. And then I guess the second, you'll probably answer it a little bit further, but the receipts during period of account. So receipts are income coming in, right? So a pension or
It's in assets coming in, liquid
okay,
assets coming in.
okay,
It doesn't mean it's taxable. It's like,
yeah,
it could be a variety of things.
okay,
Anything that's inbound is a plus in the bank.
hmm I see. And then okay, that makes sense. So
Yeah,
then I guess
we're
okay,
going to
yeah,
cover it in great detail.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so leaving the GC 400 sum and tab it or put a bookmark in because we're going to be going back and forth. Now, the first thing that we need to cover in the schedules is we need to show the court what are the assets on that date and what is the net non-cash assets on that date. So we go to the GC 400 sum, and this form is um, the PH1 for cash on hand at the beginning of an account period. So if it's your first account, it's basically a copy job from the inventory and appraisal that you turned in after 90 days of being appointed. So there's nothing different, nothing unique. It's the same thing that you had on your inventory and appraisal. Likewise, on the non-cash assets at the beginning of the account, you put the description and then the carry value that the probate referee gave you. So there again, it's a copy job from your inventory and appraisal. If it's your second, third, or fourth accounting, it will be the ending assets from your prior accounts. Because the way the judge looks is the judge is going to look at it and say, well, what was the ending value on your last account? Obviously, that's got to be your beginning balance on your second or third account. And in this form, it says estimated market value. And on your first account, you can leave that blank because there's no difference between your estimated market value and your carry value. It's only on your second, third, or fourth account. And the example here is, say you had a Charles Schwab investment account that was valued at $7 million when you took over the conservatorship, and now it's worth 9 million. So you would just take the market value on that date and put it in here. You're not held accountable for market value. And if it happened to be a house or rental properties, other real property, you would take the carry value that the probate referee gave you, and then you'd go to Zillow or Redfin or Realtor.com and come up with an estimated value currently. But you're not responsible for the market value on these forms. So that's just a carryover from your beginning inventory and appraisal. This is an optional form. We're dealing with so many subschedules that sometimes it's nice to see the accumulation before the income goes to the GC 400. So, for example, under dividends, you may have 6 pages of dividends on different accounts, and then you summarize them here. It's optional, but you summarize it here, and it ends up on Schedule A on the GC 400 sum. And the same with disbursements. It's optional. You don't file it with the court. You can leave it out. Now, you would ask Chris about income or receipts.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to get into a whole series of forms that deal with receipts. This one has to do with dividends. So you would take the safeguard investment account and you would list every dividend that you received. You cannot summarize it. Some stockbrokers will give you the report, and you cannot just take the total dividends from the accounting period and give them a summary. The monthly statement or quarterly statement, it's not allowed.
Mm-hmm.
So you list every dividend. There's something else, a couple other side issues I wanted to mention briefly. One is people want to know, like on the probate referee, how do they value assets? Was coin collection, stamp collection, antique things, furniture. There's another free publication that's available. It's the Probate Referee's Guide. And if you want to look up non-cash assets, how you might value them, that might be a good reference for you. In addition, since we're talking about court-required accounting, I ran across a case once where a husband and wife, the husband became incapacitated with Alzheimer's, and then they formed a conservatorship, and the court was requiring them to do an accounting. And they came in and I said, what are you talking about? Why would you do an accounting? Husband and wife, all the assets are community property. Each spouse has unlimited right to manage that property, so no fiduciary accounting should be required. And the citation that supports that is Probate Code Section 3051 that says husband and wife, all community, no accounting's required, just exempt from the court. Okay, we're on cash dividends, and what I want to point out here, if you have a stock portfolio and the dividends are being reinvested back into new stock, if you're doing fiduciary accounting, you likely are going to want to stop that process right away. They call that a dividend reinvestment program. We abbreviate that DRIP. The problem is, say you've got a $4 million stock portfolio at Merrill Lynch, and all the dividends are being reinvested. Okay, what does that do to somebody doing fiduciary accounting? It's a major nuisance. You have to take all the income, income, and then after you report the income, then you have to report purchase of stock, purchase of stock, 0.00037 shares of stock. It'll drive you nuts if you have to do that over a great deal of transactions. So just tell the stockbroker to take all dividends and put it into cash. Don't reinvest, and I'll reinvest every so often. Every time it gets to 30 or 50,000, I'll reinvest it. And then you have to report the asset acquisition. These forms that we're going to be covering today, we're not covering all of them. The common ones we're going to cover. But overall, I point out that there's 48 different forms that are available for fiduciary accounting, and only use them if you need them. For example, if you had no dividends in your fiduciary transactions, then leave this page out. Don't bother putting it in. It's not required. So just use it if you need it. Okay, so at the bottom, we're in, it's called section or schedules A1, and there's 6 pages. On these forms, they're subtotals. You don't accumulate the prior page. It wraps to the next page. So we're still talking about receipts. And next topic or subject area, I like to call it category, is interest income. There again, you take it off the statements from the bank where the income came from. And then we have pension income. List those as each check comes in. And we're still in the A section, but the category happens to be pensions other than Social Security. Then we move through rental income. And here you describe what you're dealing with. It's a single family residence. It's a 100-unit apartment building, and then list each of the rents as they're being, the receipts come in. Now, this was for Social Security income. In our court, the probate referees, when they get appointed, the court requires them to take our class to understand the fiduciary accounting. And we had a probate examiner in our class, and she pointed out immediately when she saw that, you can't do that. Look at that. You have 3 months worth and you put a total. No, you have to post every little nickel and dime transaction. So there needs to be 3 entries on that first one, the 2271 total. Can't summarize anything. Now, it says here Social Security, and as you know, Social Security goes directly into the bank, and they usually withhold the Medicare. So you don't list the total Social Security that's being paid. What you list is what actually hit the bank that you can control. And you can't control it if the Medicare has been taken out. You don't control that. It's Social Security controls it. And it doesn't matter that at the end of the year, when the recipient gets an IRS form 1099 SSA, that the total income you show from Social Security is different than what shows on that tax form. Okay, now receipts from other sources. This would be miscellaneous. So if you can't find another form, list it here and describe it. Your goal in all the descriptions is so the probate examiner and the judge can see what you're doing or why you're doing it. So they understand that, oh, that's not something going in your pocket, or it's not an unnecessary transaction. In this case, we got a state tax refund. Fine. Refund from the court. So just list all the miscellaneous income. And now you'll see on the bottom of the form, it says page 6 of 6. So the income for the A series of income forms has been completed. So let me see where I'm at here. Okay, we're on 28. Okay, so what we do now is we need to go back to our GC 400 sum. And there, what we're doing is we completed the receipts during the account period Schedule A with the related subschedules. So you add up all the pages and this is what you received. Okay. So we're making progress step by step through this form.
Okay, we're gonna have to run that by me.
Now,
slowly.
We're switching from the forms. We're in the B series of the forms for the GC 400 sum. We have gain on sales. This happened to be a sale of real property. So what we have is your carry value that was given to you by the probate referee. And now you have a sales price, which is the gross sales price on the final closing statement. When you get a closing statement from a title company, make sure you get one that says final closing statement, because that people give me preliminary ones all the time and I can't use them. That means the transaction's been completed when it's the final statement. So here it says the carry value when you took over your responsibility was $230. It was sold for $250 gross sales price. That was the offer. And it says that there's a $19,000 gain. And that's what the form says. That's what you have to report. But I don't agree with it, because out of a sale of a property, there's going to be a lot of expenses, brokerage commissions, recording fees, document preparation, title insurance. But in this form, they want to ignore the expenses of the sale, and we're going to pick those up in another form later. Okay, so now we've gotten done with the B series of forms. There was only one of one. So now we go back to our GC 400 sum on page 21 and gain on sale during account period. We bring that number forward total. In this case, we had no other charges. I still think the term's backwards, but that's money coming in. And we don't have a trade or business. So those are blank. Do put a 0, because that's an affirmative statement, not blank that, oh, you might have forgotten it. And then total it out on line 7 for all the funds that you started with plus added. So we're done with the income section here. Does anyone have any questions on the income side or the cash in or the assets acquired? Go
No,
ahead.
just to re-clarify, so yeah, any receipt income goes on line item 3, right? So 43,000. So pensions, everything that
If
you
it's, yeah, it'll likely be on line 3, which is Schedule A series of forms.
okay, perfect.
My question had to do with the supporting documentation for income such as Social Security. Am I attaching bank statements to show the deposits, or am I attaching the end of the year plus bank statements?
Okay, so in terms of documentation,
Or
um,
maybe you're
each,
covering that later.
no, right now. Um, there's been an evolution. We used to have to include all the bank statements from a month before to a month after accounting, the accounting period, and some counties still require that. Our county here in Contra Costa County, east of San Francisco, they are allowing us to turn in just the end account, the bank statement. And so it's significantly relaxed. One thing I want to point out to you, when you turn in the bank statements, you should kind of block out the account number except the last 4 digits so
Yes.
that information's not available in the public record. But you need to check with your court, the probate examiners, to see what they want. And that would not only be bank statements, it would also include stockbroker reports.
Okay, great. And that is actually the next question I had. The guardianship of the estate, the girls have a not a 401k, it was a rolled over retirement account,
Yes,
was split between the 2 girls, and it's
yes,
gathering interest.
yes.
And so I'm listing the amount and the interest that have been received during the accounting period. Is that right?
No,
Oh,
not right. Okay, when you have a retirement account, 401k, an IRA, rollover IRA, 203B, the money is within another trust. The trust is called a pension trust. And so if there's been no distributions from that, then you're not reporting the income within that account.
oh, okay.
And what happens is you had it valued likely from the probate referee when you started, and you leave that value even though it fluctuates. But you don't get into the pensions, and because they're non-taxable, you're not controlling them. Someone else is in charge. They have a term called a custodian on the pensions. And yes, if you take money out, boom, then you're in reporting for this purpose.
Okay, this is one of the items I asked Tamara about earlier, where the probate referee told me not to list it on the inventory and appraisal. Do I need to do a corrected?
You'd have to talk to the probate referee on that. It's an
Okay.
asset that is owned and controlled. If you're in charge of that person's asset, I cannot see a reason why it would have not been on the inventory and appraisal. I told you about the probate referee's handbook. You could look for, I don't have the specific answer whether you need to amend or not. Tamara might have a different view on it, but if there's a pension and like say there was 2 girls and they split it into 2, those are assets that you are in control of. So if the probate referee did not want to value it, you would need to put it on your your liquid asset schedule, but you do need to report it to the court, in my view, because
What was the question again? Sorry, I just stepped
hey,
in.
we're talking about pension. So there's two girls on a conservatorship, and they had a pension. I guess they split it apart, and she wanted to report every transaction within the pension plan. And it's my view that it does not get reported until you take money out of the pension.
It would only be, well, first of all, if certain accounts like, I don't know if you stated this or not, like pay on death accounts, um, you would not include those, or you could include it and just leave it as a dollar value. But pensions that are being split, you would only list the 50% on each one because they would be separate conservatorship accounts, but you would indicate it was a pension account and you would just list it as a dollar.
Yeah,
Is
so what
that,
she had asked was that the probate referee told her you don't have to report it. And I disagree. If the probate referee won't value it, I would put it as a liquid asset based on the date that she was appointed, the letters of conservatorship.
But I would still report it as only a dollar.
$1.
$1. Yeah.
$1. And the income and disbursements and gains within that account are not reported in detail like what we're talking about here, unless there's a distribution, and then you would report only the distribution as income.
Well, it would still only be a dollar distribution because
Correct.
you only reported it as a dollar of a value. Yes.
Okay.
so this applies to a traditional IRA rollover on a estate of the guardianship. That's what you've just said, just applies. Reported as a dollar since the probate referee did not value it. And then don't include it in the annual reportings until and unless there are disbursements.
Okay. That's what we're talking about so far, but unfortunately, I have a different view. And my view is that the market value on the day you got appointed should show in your inventory and appraisal, because if that money disappears, then the ward has been hurt or damaged by that. So my view would be I would either have the probate referee value it, or if they won't do it, then I'll put the market value when I took over and leave it, don't report any changes until maybe distributions come out. So I
Okay.
would, I want the court to know all the assets that potentially could be available to the ward in any conceivable thing. There is another exception. It's just jurisdiction. If there's an out-of-state rental property, you don't list it because that's out of the California jurisdiction. But
Oh,
I would show that there's a pension and the value when you took it over.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we have gone through, I want to find where I left off. Going, the money's starting to go out. Disbursements. Okay, so the disbursements starts on page 30. Here we're listing long-term care facilities, the amount of the payment every month to the care facility, each transaction. And if on these care facilities, oftentimes you have other charges, meals, field trips, things like that, I would just leave it as paid to that entity as a disbursement. This is a disbursement for general administrative kind of expenses for administering the estate or the conservatorship. You cannot pay the administrator or the attorney without court order, but these are not technically payments, they're reimbursements for funds that the law firm advanced. But it's money going out, so it has to show as a disbursement. Then we have another section for disbursements, living expenses. Describe how it benefits if it's an unusual transaction, like for example, a hot tub. You spend $8,000 on it. Well, how does that benefit the conservatee? You could say that they had an injury and doctor required a certain amount of being in a hot tub for medical reasons, just so that the court doesn't feel that you're doing something that benefits you at the expense of the ward. Then we have disbursement for medical, and that's the amount that's not reimbursed. You don't put what the insurance company paid. And I told you on a house sale that the closing costs are shown separately, and that we have a schedule for the expenses on sale of real property.
Oh wait, can you just go back to that real quick? So the line items here, you would take the escrow, the final escrow, and then it also lists on the final escrow, the broker's commission, that so you basically take the cumulative deductions and that becomes your debit or debit credit, right?
You use the term debit and credit, and
Well,
anybody that knows what a debit and credit is in fiduciary accounting is going to be walking with their shoelaces tied
sure,
because of the terminology
sure.
differences.
Mhm.
What you do on a final closing statement is you take all of the, there might be disbursements, there might be income,
Mhm.
and you list them all. The only number you do not use on a escrow closing statement is the net cash, which seems odd because that's what we're doing in all the other transactions. But like say at the end, after all expenses paid, there was 800,000 paid. You don't use that number. You go through each of the steps, and by derivation, it works out that way. But yes, you do go through the final closing statement and list the expenses, and sometimes there's income.
Mhm.
And this is another disbursement. It had to do with a commission consignment fee on sale of furniture. And now we have another disbursement schedule that is expense for a rental property. And then other, which means miscellaneous, anything that didn't fit in the other expense categories.
Oh, sorry, one question for the property. Do you list also the monthly like payments? So my dad lived half in his house and then he moved in with me. I would list the previous payments on the mortgage, right?
Okay, whether the person, if they had a mortgage, it doesn't
Sure.
matter if they live in the house or not.
Okay. Yeah,
It's still a liability of the ward.
sure.
So no matter where they lived, that's
Mhm.
still going to be shown on the disbursement section.
Okay. Mhm.
Then we have a scheduled loss on sale. Um, and then I'll point out another form that we don't have an example of. If you, there's a form, Schedule F, that if you change the form of an asset, you have to tell the court. And by that, I mean, say you had a brokerage account at Merrill Lynch, and then all of a sudden it disappeared from your inventory and appraisal because you took all the money and put it in Charles Schwab. So you would show that transaction as a change in form of asset. Okay, so we've gone through the disbursements, and so we want to make sure that we get to the GC 400 sum. And we had a series of forms called Schedule C. It totaled 131,000. Line 9, we've got losses on sale, transaction, the others are blank. And so now we've covered the disbursements, and then we come to the point where we need to settle up with the court and let them know what you have at the end of the account period. So you reconcile to the day of your end of account, list the names of the institutions. And what I recommend on your carry value for all your assets is you give all the assets in the beginning and a number. So like number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in this list, and you keep that through your entire account. Never change that number. If you sold asset number 3, leave number 3 blank in the future, because the probate examiners track assets, whether they appeared or disappeared. And so anything that's acquired as an asset gets the next asset number. It's just a form to make it easier for the court. So list the values. Now, the non-cash assets at the end of the account period are there again. We had the carry value that we got from the probate referee originally, and we're listing those if there's not been any addition. And then you would list the market value, which you're not held accountable for. So at that point, you want to make sure you've got we've gone through the income, we've gone through the disbursements, we've listed the ending assets, and now we have you make sure that you balance everything you had. What came in is for 1.4 million. Everything that went out plus your ending assets were at 1.4 million. And now we have balanced.
I had
So
one
go ahead.
question.
Go ahead.
For like your day, let's say like your daily payments, let's say for like food and other things, that would also be considered a credit, right? Because you're essentially making payment for food and
That
other.
is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a schedule that we covered called living expenses.
Yeah. But you have to show every like meal receipt.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And somebody had asked about receipts and documentation.
Mhm.
You do not turn in the receipts, although some courts I've heard are picky and do that.
Mhm.
You keep the receipts
Mhm.
in case there's a question
Sure.
about it. Now, we've been using judicial council forms, as I pointed out in the lower left. There's a different format that is frequently used, and this is an Excel version. Like we have one that's available, and I'm trying to get my sub pages showing. Where are they? I got so many screens open, I can't see everything. Da, 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 da.
Just FYI, you're into my time.
2 minutes. Okay, so in the accounting handout number 2, if you're going to use Excel, just follow this format and putting income, your original assets, like the GC 400 sum, but end up using it, and then put an Excel spreadsheet, everything by category. So it's frequently done that way. Like I said, we have a rudimentary schedule. Before I turn it back to Tamara, if you have questions of me, Rex Crandell, you can reach me at info@rexcrandell.com or our office address at 800-464-6595, and I'll be available to be of assistance. So,
Thank you. I had, sorry, one last question. On the
okay,
Excel spreadsheet, the format that you use, you have the carry value. And then, so that column is like the initial carry value, but then there's the fair market value, but I noticed there's no figures listed, so you wouldn't list it twice, only in the if something were to change or if we were to
The
decrease.
carry value is shown at the beginning of the account and at the
Yeah.
end of the account.
Okay.
The carry value doesn't show any time during the year. Remember my
Yeah.
snapshot example.
Okay.
It's a snapshot in the beginning, snapshot at the end, and
Okay.
then all the other is over time.
I see. So carry's beginning, and then the fair market value is the end. That's the
Yeah,
snap.
that's, I mean, you're not held accountable, you guesstimate. By
Sure.
guess and by gosh, it must be worth this much, put a number down and move on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So I'm gonna change host now so Tamara can share her screen. And that's going to be the end of my presentation for today, and Tamara will continue. Did you receive the share screen, Tamara?
No, hun.
Okay, I just tried to send it to you. Let me try again. Okay, now it went through. It must have been the internet that slowed down. Okay, I see your screen, Tamara, so I think you've got the meeting.
Control? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank
I know you like control, so you're in charge.
you. Fair comment. I take it. Okay.
Okay.
Back to me. Again, I'm going to talk somewhat quick to try and end it on time, even though there may be some questions at the end. So I apologize for my coughing. So once you have your accounting done, you cannot just turn in the accounting with the summary page and the all your detailed schedules. You have to complete what's called a petition, which is telling the court and all beneficiaries and even opposing counsel, if there's other attorneys on the other side, what you did during the accounting period. So that's the petition we will go through. And sorry, one thing I must also state, you have to do a petition which states what you did, and you have to do an order which states what do you want the court to approve in the accounting. I only go through, or as part of the class, we only have time to go through the petition. So I'm going to go through it now. What you will want to do is make sure you submit this petition on what's called pleading paper. Pleading paper means it's numbered along the sides like this. You can type in on Google and ask for a blank pleading paper or pleading paper, and something will come up for you to use. So, how you will complete it is you will put your name, just like the header I showed you on the inventory and appraisal. You will put all your information up here. This is your name, your address, your phone number, your email address. Again, you will even write the words attorney for, but you will have your name come as conservator, comma, pro per. They also say pro se, but I like to use the words pro per. It's just easier for me. So, or you would just put your name, comma, pro per if you don't want to put a title. Skip down a couple lines, Superior Court. Remember, this would be whatever county you are in. It will change based. It could be Contra Costa, it could be Solano, it could be Sonoma, could be Napa. Whatever county your case is in, you will indicate that here. On the left side, our sample shows a conservatorship. So for conservatorships, you can write conservatorship. If you're of the person and the estate, you would indicate that. I myself typically use the words in Ray or in re IN space RE, and then I don't really put this title up here because I include it down here. For a probate, they use estate of only. So this could range based on whether you're doing this for a probate, a conservatorship, or a guardianship. I will tell you that this is specific to conservatorship and guardianships, this petition. The petition for a probate is a little different, and we don't have that sample within our class today, but it is a little different. The details within the body are different. So if you're doing a probate, um, you could kind of look up sample petition for accounting or something like that and see if you can get a sample. So keep in mind, I'm only showing you this, and this really only applies to conservatorship or guardianships, because it will be different for probate. So let's go through what you would state on your petition. Again, you have to indicate the person's name. Always make sure, if they go by a different name, like a lot of people go by their middle name, a lot of people go by a different name. They were nicknamed as a child, or maybe they didn't like their name as a child, so they would always go by a different name. Make sure you indicate that name. If they were recently married or divorced and went back to their maiden name, you would also include what their prior what their prior married name was, just so you make sure you are encompassing everything. You mean it for whether her name is Jeannie or she only goes by Anne, or you're indicating all names that they went by recently. You don't have to dig back and also include their maiden name if they've been married 20 years or 10 years or something like that. That's not really necessary. But if it's somewhat recent, you would want to include the AKAs. I usually just write AKA and not also known as, but that's truly what you really wish or how you wish to name it. You have to indicate whether they're the conservatee, the decedent, or the minor. You want to indicate that there. Over here, you want to indicate the case number. I always separate the lines, so I do mine a little different than these. And it's just by personal preference. I'm going to mute Rex. So you want to make sure that you indicate that. Now, it's important in your caption to state everything you're seeking in this petition or you're wanting the court to look at, because this is their introduction. You're telling that judge when he picks up this paper, what is he looking at? Like, is he looking at your declaration? Is he looking at you just saying hi to him, which you wouldn't, but what is he looking at? He or she. I'm sorry, I always use he, but he or she, depending on what the judge is. So in this case, I'm going to indicate it's the first account. It might be the second account. In a probate, it's typically the first and final account, because in a probate, you're only going to do an accounting one time, which is at the very end. So in this case, you'll indicate first account current, meaning, it's the last thing that's happened. Report of the conservator. It could say report of the guardian. In the probate, it would be report of administrator. And petition for settlement. In the accounting sample that we did, we had a sale of, I think a car. There was also a sale of the vacation home and real property. So you'll indicate that there. And remember, it's extremely important. Please, if you know nothing else about a conservatorship or a guardianship, you are never allowed to reimburse yourself for advanced expenses, and you are never allowed to pay yourself conservatorship or conservator fees without court approval. Please don't ever do that. Even if, like, say for instance, maybe you didn't have access to a checking or a savings account yet, but property taxes were due. And you fronted the money to pay the property taxes for your mom or the conservatee, right? You are entitled to be reimbursed, absolutely, but you cannot be reimbursed until you ask the court for reimbursement and the court issues an order. Now, that does not go for anybody else, like you're hiring a landscaper or you're hiring somebody else. That is not you. You do pay them, you do reimburse them. For instance, say you didn't have the money to pay the conservatives' property taxes, but maybe your brother or one of your other family members did. They reimburse or they paid the bill, and then you got access to the checking account and you issued them a reimbursement check for those property taxes. That's fine. It's only when it comes to you or the attorney. Again, an attorney knows when they're handling probate, conservatorships, and guardianships ship account, they cannot ask for attorney fees ahead of a court approval. Now, yes, they may ask for a deposit. A deposit might be $1,000, might be $1,500, might be $2,500. That typically must go into their trust account. If they advance filing fees and stuff like that, they can use that trust account money. And but it's very important that they tell, like me, if I'm preparing the petition, that they did collect that money up front. But it's very minor amount of money. It's not 10,000 unless you have a huge estate. So again, an attorney will know. If an attorney asks you for funds up front in the amount of 10 grand, and you know your estate is smaller, that you may say, I'm under the impression that the attorney isn't paid until the end or whatever. I can only send you a smaller amount.
Sorry, one question. Would that also go, so if you advance and want to pay off, like if they have outstanding credit cards to financial institutes, would that work for financial institutes and
That's
also
correct.
attorneys? Okay.
You cannot reimburse yourself until you get approval. So if you advance it, you have to realize you're advancing it for at least a year if it's your first accounting, or you're advancing it for 2 years if you're a second accounting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and it happens a lot. It truly happens a whole lot that you, as the conservator or the guardian, advance money. Same goes, say for instance, it's a minor account, guardianship account. Your minor has inherited money from, let's say, a deceased father. And say the minor plays AAU basketball or some type of team sport, or even if the minor is in a their high school is paid for, they're in a private school, and you have to advance that. Realize, as the parent, you're responsible for half anyway. So at the end, when we're doing this petition, you could ask the court for half of the payments to the private school, be reimbursed back to you, but you cannot pay yourself prior to asking permission for it. That's very important. Again, be very diligent about what you pay yourself during this time that you're administering, whether it's a guardianship or a conservatorship. So again, I've asked in here for allowance of conservator fees. A lot of times people waive conservator fees because it's their mom or something else. You're entitled to waive that, but you would indicate in your caption you're waiving conservator fees. If you hired an attorney, you really wouldn't be doing this yourself, but this is the time you ask for attorney fees and everything of that nature. So I will go along. You will see as we get through it how this all works out and why it coincides with each other. You will always indicate date of hearing, those wording, but you will not have a hearing date. When you submit this petition with the accounting as an attachment, you will indicate, you will leave this blank and the court will provide you with the hearing date. They will either write it in, stamp it in, PDF toolbar it in, anything of whatever, however they indicate, they will provide the date there. The time also, they will provide that. You still will put it on here. Department. You should know what department you are in. You never change departments, rarely. And even if you do, you will receive a notice from the court that you have moved departments. And so you will receive an official notice and know what department you're in. I've never really had them bounce back. Say your department moves and you use the old department number. I've never had them reject because you put the wrong department number in there. They might cross it out and put the proper department, but I also never indicate the judge's name, and I actually do not include this line item on mine. The judges can change. The judge can be out sick the day of your hearing, and if somebody else is stepping in. A commissioner might be, instead of a judge, a commissioner might be appointed on that day to hear your case. So I never indicate the judge because I really don't know who is going to hear this case. A different judge could step in. There could be so many different things. So I don't indicate this. I leave it blank. They know what it means. Okay, so to start the petition, you're now ready to start the petition. You're going to indicate you are the petitioner and your name, but in these parentheses, and I usually use quotes around the word conservator, you're going to say, I may not refer to myself going forward as David Lowry. I may only refer to myself as conservator, but it means the same thing. That's all you're indicating here. So you're saying I, as the conservator of the estate, and it should have said person, estate and person of Jeannie. I'm the conservatee. I present to you for settlement and allowance my first account. And I really, what I do is I will say I present semicolon, and then I'll just take this and copy it and put it all in here. So I repeat my caption. It's simple enough. Then I, as the petitioner, respectfully state the following things that I've done or that have happened. Remember, with court in any type of legal filing documents you're going to do, keep in mind that your petition or your paper you submit must stand on its own. Those are words you will hear over and over and over again in the legal world. Your papers must stand on their own. What is that meaning? That means I could pick up this petition. I know nothing about you or your case, nothing, absolutely nothing. But I can read this and I know everything about your case, right? Pretend I know nothing. I mean, truly, even though I'm the same judge that's heard your case, that judge hears probably 30 cases a day. Imagine them going a year or even 2 years, 30 cases a day that they're working, sometimes more, sometimes less. At times, all that time period, they cannot possibly remember every single case, but they will remember important things like if somebody was contentious, or they're going to remember certain things as soon as they start reading. So, within our petition, the first thing we're going to say is our appointment. So I'm telling the court, I, as the petitioner of the person in the estate, was appointed, or the order was signed by the court on March 8th. Now, remember, a probate referee, before it even gets to the judge, is reading this. I'm going to look and go, okay, March 8th, let me go back to your calendar or your case online. Did we really issue an order on March 8th? Sure. The inventory and appraisal says March 8th. The accounting starts on March 8th. We're all good. All those boxes check. I can move on. Letters were issued. Now, remember when I was telling you on the inventory and appraisal, your letters might be issued at a different time, and it was you have to be very careful to include on the inventory and appraisal the date of order, not the date of letters. This can confuse you, and this could get ugly. If your accounting starts on March 14th and your inventory and appraisal starts on March 14th, the examiner won't go any further. They'll say, I'm sorry, your accounting is not based on the proper time period, and they will reject it all, and nobody reads anything else you did. They won't look at the accounting. They won't do anything because you started the wrong time period. So they are looking at what you're stating here, and you want to repeat this section, even if it's your second accounting, third, fourth, fifth, 12th, whatever. You want to have this appointment information in here. Okay, and so at all times, I have been acting as the conservator. One more thing, number 2, the inventory and appraisal. The inventory and appraisal has been filed with the court, the date I filed it, and the value that showed on the inventory and appraisal. Remember, my sample only showed the inventory and appraisal as 57. See this number here? That means the probate referee has valued attachment 2, and it has come to the conclusion that the total is 1,342,258. So that's what you'll indicate here. Now, just on page 1, are there any questions with what we went through?
No, but I have a question a little bit later, and you
Okay,
may get to
wait
it.
to see if I get there and answer your question
Oh,
first,
but
honey.
just let me throw it out there. It's for what papers are needed, or what financial information is required to send to financial institutes like the VA or, other people. It's the 30-day prior to notice of hearing, right? What information needs to be sent out?
30 days prior, well, it depends. You will get to see, you only send this petition and this accounting
Yeah,
to interested parties. So
correct.
if it's a conservatorship, it could be brothers, sisters, grandchildren, daughters,
Sure.
sons,
Do you,
those immediate family members.
yeah, do you
Or
send all of the financial forms and information that have been filled out?
that's totally different. That does not have to do with an accounting unless they filed a request for notice, or a different request. You're only sending family members this. The financial institutions like Social Security,
No,
Medicare,
I know that, but
Medicaid.
I think like the Veterans Affair is an interested party, right? They have to be notified of first finances. So,
No,
hmm,
you do that only in your petition.
yeah, I guess so then.
They don't get noticed after,
So I understand.
unless they file a claim or something and they request special notice.
Yeah, so but is there like specific forms that proof of notice of hearing like GC 355 or GC 341? These
To
forms?
provide them notice of the hearing.
Yeah. Mhm.
You could provide them notice of hearing in a decedent's estate is the DE 120, and that would be what you attach as a notice of hearing. In the conservatorship guardianship account, it's the GC 020, I believe.
And that's for like proof of notice because
Correct.
and I think the conservatee themselves also have to be notified.
You are correct. They
Yeah.
must also get a copy of this petition in your accounting.
And is it only the petition or is it the petition plus all the finances?
It'll be the petition and you'll include the accounting, and I'm going to show you how
Okay.
that all has to, but when you do not include bank statements, you only include your accounting.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go on. You'll see that as we go on. I'll give you a little bit more details through the petition.
Mhm.
So the next thing you'll state on the petition is the period of account. So you're going to indicate what the time period was for the accounting you're turning in. It must match. Charges and credits, you could just copy this whole sentence, but you'll want to indicate that there. Charges and credits, when I indicate this, I do mine a little bit different. I will also say a true and correct copy is attached as Exhibit A, Exhibit 1. Because I use numbers here with my exhibits, I like to switch it to A, B, C, D instead of Exhibit 1 when it can be confused. But if I'm going through here and I'm stating this as ABC, I would state my exhibit 1. So I alternate so there's no confusion that my exhibits are separate than my line items. So authorized investments during the account period, all cash has been invested in interest-bearing accounts. Please be very careful that you make sure when you take over as a conservatorship that if the checking account the conservatee was using is not an interest bearing account, you must shut it down and open an interest bearing account, even if the interest is very small. If you do not put the money or keep the money in an interest bearing account, the court will ask you about it. And I have seen cases where beneficiaries have sued the conservator for the interest that the money should have accrued and that you did not put it in an interest bearing account, so it did not accrue, and you would be personally liable for paying that interest that you did not put the accounts in an interest bearing account.
Oh, sorry, one last question.
Yes,
For that account, so let's say you're daily checking through like a Wells Fargo or Chase Bank, that's what you pay the bills for. But if you have, cash assets and you put that in a separate account, do you also have to show that account ending statement, beginning and end to
yes,
the court? Okay,
yes. And again, it must be interest bearing.
sure. Yeah.
Okay. Statement of liabilities. This section would be if there is still a mortgage on a house or there's still liabilities and a loan or a lien has been placed against the estate. It's not. usual, or if say for instance, you're talking with a CPA, you did the taxes and it's about that time, and coming up soon you're going to have to pay a tax bill of $5,000 or something like that, you could indicate here. Here we've indicated a sale of the automobile. This number 7 is optional. When I say optional, because people have come back after the class and all of a sudden they did a petition and it included 2 lines on it and they turned it in the court and they were upset with me why the court rejected it. And I'm like, where's all your other details? And they said, oh, well, I thought it was optional because you said there's certain ones that are optional. There are very few that are optional, and I will indicate here what's optional and what is not. I would not include a sale of an automobile if I had no automobile I sold. Like, that would be silly. So again, number 7 is optional. For conservatorships, if you realize that, say, your conservatee was placed in a care home and maybe they're bedridden or they're in a wheelchair, they cannot drive anymore, or you wouldn't have this conservatorship. There's no reason to keep the automobile and keep paying car insurance and keep paying DMV fees, keep gas, keep it maintained. There's no reason if your conservatee will never drive that vehicle again. So the conservator sold the automobile that was on inventory and appraisal attachment 2, line item 7, for a loss. Now, sometimes it could be for a gain. I don't necessarily indicate, I don't even necessarily indicate I put it on attach the inventory and appraisal. That's kind of given. I don't put attachment 2 or line item 7. I will just not indicate that. I will just say sold the conservatee's automobile for a loss or a gain. And it's on Schedule D. If it's a loss, it's a different schedule if it's a gain. And I request the court to approve that I sold the car for a loss. And sometimes I'll indicate why. There was no engine. The engine was frozen. The maybe it's got a transmission problem. Maybe it is pretty beat up, oxidized so badly. I give if I wanted to, I could give a reason if it was a huge loss. If it's just a simple loss or a smaller loss, I usually don't indicate because the courts know that cars change in value probably daily. Really, is it a truck or is it a small tiny car? Usually trucks can be, have more people are interested in it than maybe a 2-seater, or I may indicate stuff like that and I may not. If the court really wants you to detail why, they will tell you in an examiner note later. They will say, please file a supplemental declaration stating why the car was sold for such a less value than the inventory and appraisal. And then you can answer it there. We also had sale of furniture and fixtures. So remember, we sold the vacation home. So I'm going to indicate here what was sold, why it was sold, how it was sold, stuff like that. I may donate it. I may toss it. I may garbage it, depending on what it is. Not a car, absolutely not, but donate it. Maybe the car was really say you had an old car, you were trying to get restored, and it's like a 1966 Mustang, and the auto shop literally has it in 1,000 pieces. Well, how can I sell a car that's in 1,000 pieces? I have to pay to put it back together and then sell it, but you have to use your best judgment. If I paid to use the conservatees money to pay to get it restored, am I going to get that value back or more? You don't want to take it for a loss. So, like, and or you can petition the court ahead of time to ask permission because the car's in a million pieces. You may ask the court ahead of time, hey, can I get approval to donate the car to the repair shop and let him put it back together and deal with it. I mean, many things can go on with that. For the sale of real property, again, it's a vacation home. They're never going to be able to leave the facility. There was a gain. The only thing I don't like about this, but it's given in the samples, is before you can sell conservatories real property, especially if it's their residence, you have to get court approval first. You don't sell it and then ask the court for approval. Absolutely not. You will get in all kinds of trouble. You must, in a conservatorship or a guardianship, if there is a house and you have a minor with a guardianship, you cannot sell the real property without court approval. And it's pretty intense steps. You have to have a hearing. The sale has to be in front of the court. I mean, with the judge. The judge would determine whether, yes, you can sell the property or no. You really, before you even list the property with an agent, you have to get approval from the court to even sign a listing agreement. So you have a lot going on. You're not going to just sell the property and then do a petition like this. So this is kind of a false way of explaining, but let's just move on because it's our sample. So you're indicating there was a sale, whether it was a gain or loss. I'm saying I reported it on Schedule B. In this case, the person has gone ahead of time and said, hey, Judge, I realize that now I sold the house. So instead of only $50,000 in cash, which when I was first appointed, I only had cash of $50,000. Now I have cash of $550,000. I need to increase my bond. So I'm going to go ahead and do it ahead of time. And so this person increased their bond on their own. Otherwise, you may want to indicate, I realize I now have more cash. If the court wishes me to increase my bond, I will, or something of that nature you can put in there. So that is not an optional answer. If you're not requesting additional bond, but you still want to indicate because you have a bond, you would, instead of additional, you would just chop that off and just state bond. I have a bond in the amount of $550,000. My cash assets are below that. I wish to keep my bond the same, or some type of wording in that case. So going down to the next one, you must always indicate if there was an affiliated relationship. What does that mean? That means you hired a family member to help you and you paid them. I always use the same simple example. I have a conservatee and they live in a homeowners association where every week they state the lawn has to be mowed. Got it? I have a landscaper. I pay, every single week to landscape that lawn. My landscaper decides to go on vacation for a month. Uh-oh, I still have to have that lawn mowed. I'm not going out and doing it, although I would, but I'm not going out and doing it. I've got to find somebody else. You want to, if you're hiring somebody else who's a landscaper and maybe their rate is a little bit more because I'm only paying them for the month, I'll say, okay, I'll go ahead and do it. But if they're a whole lot more, I'm going to look for somebody who's more comparable to the landscaper I use.
Yeah, actually, I had a question about that. So if you, let's say you have like a caretaker, you know,
Uh-huh.
or a family member, and you pay the normal rate, but let's say you pay them just like $5 more than like what the going rate would be,
You're
you know.
not allowed.
What do you mean?
You cannot do it.
No, no, no. I know, but what I'm saying though is I mean, like, there's fair market, I wouldn't say fair market value, but like the laws of the economy would state that like you would otherwise if you pay like let's say $25 is like the going rate, but you keep losing people because they can make $30 more, right? As a caretaker, like who determines what is the market value for a caretaker, right? Like
If you decide to do that, you better provide pretty convincing evidence to the court,
sure,
especially if it's a family member that because a lot of people do that and the family member is not a certified
sure, sure.
CNA or the
Mhm.
family member is just being nice. They're not certified. They really don't have any experience in this. The court would never allow it. The court's going to make you pay back, um, especially because it's a family member, would make pay back the
No,
difference.
no, I mean, aside from family member, just like employee,
Oh,
like
somebody
who,
else? Yeah,
yeah,
sure. If
I
it's
mean,
reasonable.
who determines what the frugality is of you do have a certified person, you know,
Yeah, you could do it that way. That would be okay. I
yeah,
probably would indicate here, not here, but I would indicate in the petition that I was losing all good caregivers,
yeah,
and so I had to increase the hourly rate
yeah,
just to maintain a caregiver based on rates and stuff like
yeah,
that. I
no,
would
so
just explain.
that's I just want to make sure that that's
This line item though is specific to family members.
yeah, no,
So,
yeah, it was separate. My
uh,
question,
okay, so I'll go back to my situation where my son's home from college and I go, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Will you go mow this lawn every week? I will pay you, but I'll give you an extra $10 because I know you're in college and you really need the money."
Mhm.
Absolutely not. Nope, can't do it.
Mhm.
That $10 more that I paid them will come back to you, and I must indicate
Mhm.
that here. Another example would be that say my husband is a realtor and they're going to be the one to sell the property. That's perfectly fine as long as I indicate that. But I'm also going to indicate that my husband will not charge a fee that's any amount higher than me hiring anybody else. In that case, it's perfectly acceptable to use a family member. But where it gets ugly is, say, for instance, it's a probate and it's a decedent's estate, so it means they passed away. You hire your daughter who's 16 to go clean out the house, and you want to pay them $5,000 for 1 day of cleaning out the house. But a court would know you could hire any professional other person to come clean out that house for so much cheaper. You cannot do that. It has to, you either have to pay your family member the same rate that's going, in a reasonable world and nothing more, but you also must be diligent and say, yes, I paid my daughter this amount of money, so on and so forth. This must be in every petition. So that's really important. Going down to, I've got 10 minutes, I won't make it, but I'm going to try. Going down to conservators' compensation, this is where you're going to ask for compensation if you wish to. A lot of times, and I'm going to give you several different examples, conservators spend 150 hours providing, and you're going to state what you did. In this sample, the conservator was the son. So he states, that's my mom. I visited the facility once a week. I made sure she was receiving proper care. Personal needs were met. I marshaled all the assets, paid the bills, did the accounting. I sold the home. So here it's indicating what he did, or he did. And even though he worked 150 hours, and the going rate typically for a non-professional fiduciary used to be 50, it's bumped up to 75 an hour. I still kind of like to tend to go back down to the 50 range, and mine all get approved. I've seen some ask for 75 and give real detailed of they had some hard stuff they had to do during the time, and so they wanted the $75 an hour fee. But just remember, you're actually taking money from your mom. And that's kind of a difficult thing to say. Yeah, I need something because I couldn't work during this period, or I had to take time off to go to court and do these certain things. I want to be reimbursed a little bit, you know. Or you could actually say that I waive any right to any fee. I don't think that's actually a good thing either. I think you really deserve the time, the energy, what you spent doing work. I'm just saying, to ask during 1 year for $5,000 from your mom might be a little high to me, just saying. But below that is reasonable to me because of all the work you did. You just want to be compensated. You're not trying to bankrupt mom with your fees or the rest of the family, but you just say, this is kind of mom's thank you to you for doing all you're doing, because many of your other brothers and sisters aren't doing a doggone thing, and they're not getting any, so if you get zero and they're not getting zero, I mean, they're also like, you need to be compensated for at least a little bit of what you're doing. Um, so this is where you can ask. Now, another thing that I don't see in the sample is the conservator asking for reimbursement of advanced expenses. That would kind of typically fall under, again, you're doing pro per, you really wouldn't have the attorney compensation, but it would fall under. And so since I don't here, well, let me back up. I'm sorry. Let me go through the attorney and then I'll say what I wanted to say. For attorney compensation, if you hired an attorney, that attorney will need to complete a timesheet and turn it into you. And that will be like another exhibit. That timesheet really has to tell the court what they did. They have to put it in categories. They have to state their hourly rate. Their rate has to be reasonable, stuff like that. If you did not hire an attorney, you would still put the sentence and say, conservator did not retain the services of an attorney, and therefore zero amount is requested for attorney fees, or something of that nature. I will put that in. Then below, I will add a line item that's maybe 14, and I will say conservators reimbursement. So say I advanced for property taxes, whatever money I advanced, and I want it reimbursed, I would say here, I would include a spreadsheet that's the date, what I paid, what it was for, and the amount, and then total it and turn in as an exhibit the entire spreadsheet showing every dollar that I spent of my own money. And the purpose for that, it could be filing fees, it could be again property taxes, it could be that you ran to the facility said, hey, um, she needs, let's say, undergarments, or mom needs slippers, or anything of that nature. You run to Walmart, wherever, Target, run there, grab those slippers, grab what she needs, run back to the home, deliver it. You didn't have mom's checking account or ATM card on you when that happened, right? And you just, for time's sake, you just ran and did it. Um, that you would keep the receipt, you don't turn in the receipt, but then you prepare your expense reimbursement and you ask to be reimbursed. Now, if you do that and you ask for reimbursement, don't forget our header up here. You would have to include that reimbursement of advanced fees to conservator would have to be added in your caption right here, because again, it's something you're asking for. Sorry, I'm sliding through this. Okay, we're getting down to veterans benefits. This must be in every petition. You will indicate whether the conservatee is receiving veterans benefits or not. You do not have to prove that you gave notice or anything like that. It's just part of what you're supposed to do. And please don't ever lie and say you do something that you didn't do, because it'll come back and nip you in the butt when you least expect it. So you want to indicate here whether veterans benefits were received or not. Whether, say, the mortgage on the house was paid for with a VA loan, anything of that nature. Of course, you're going to indicate that here. You want to indicate whether the conservatee has been a patient in a state facility. You want to indicate the conservatee's address. Now, I use my discretion. If I state, or if the conservatee is at home and it does not have a caregiver 24 hours, 7 days a week, right? I don't know that I'm going to indicate the conservatee's address in this petition. I may state the conservatee is still residing at their principal residence, and that might be all I state, because to me it makes that conservatee vulnerable to anybody else who grabs this petition. Oh, a conservatee that's light bulb, they don't necessarily have capacity or understand everything, which makes them vulnerable. And they may be left alone for some time. And when they're left alone is when they're most vulnerable, right? We all know this. And so I don't want to put them at risk. So I may say, they just reside at their personal residence. Or if they're in a facility that you're really not worried about, because just ordinary people can't come in and just go into their room. You have to sign things and whatever it is at the facility. So I would indicate if they're at a facility. Remember, there's certain things and forms you must file if you move them to facilities. You have very little time to indicate to the court that you move them to a different facility. So if I move them during my count period, I might say for the first half or the first 6 months of my accounting, they resided at their personal residence and later were moved to a facility. Something like that. my account statements, this is specifically has to do with the bank statements. Again, I'm going to indicate I'm going to submit them to the court. But what is very important is you do not attach them to this petition. You must use a separate cover page that is confidential, and you must indicate on that cover page these are confidential, meaning no one except for the court or somebody who is authorized can go to the clerk's office and pull those bank statements. So they are separate and they are submitted separately. I know I briefly heard Rex talk about some courts and maybe they only want the ending. I myself always will submit the beginning and the ending. A lot of times, courts want them all. So I really have to know what my court wants. And again, I
Yeah.
deal with this often. So I have a list of what courts, what they require, what they need. So I'm on top of that if I'm doing it myself.
I have one question. So when the statement's made, the court wants beginning and end, is that the beginning and end of each month or the beginning and end of the accounting period?
Just beginning and end of accounting period, hon. They
Okay.
want to see that
Yeah.
what you're stating is your beginning assets and balance is accurate, and what you're saying your ending assets are accurate.
Okay.
So they're looking at those numbers. If they're off in any way, you're going to get an examiner note that says we're seeing that it doesn't match. If you did submit only beginning and end and say they want more detailed, like they want to see something more. I don't see this ever happening, but it could. They may ask for more bank statements, but usually if I use a category, for instance, that they don't quite understand, say I say it was just, I code it as a service finance charge, right? That doesn't really state what the service finance charge is for. So in that case, they'll write me back and say, hey, I need further explanation on what is your service finance charge. I'm kind of used to examiner notes, what they want to see, what the court wants, what the judges want. So I'm usually pretty particular in my coding of my categories, and I'm pretty detailed in making sure I give them those details so that they don't come back and ask me later. But you could see something like that later. But again, your accounting statements are never submitted with this petition. It's always separate. They are listed as confidential. Once you submit them, oh, that's the other thing. You have to submit original bank statements, not copies you printed offline, not copies you made. They have to be the original bank statements. And if you don't have the original bank statements, because maybe you were using online accounting, you must go to the bank, ask them to print the bank statements. They stamp them, yes, or it came from our bank, and you turn them in. The purpose being is, believe it or not, on any PDF that's done, I can manipulate it. I can work miracles on a PDF. So if I wanted to be a bad person, or I didn't want to show you that I took a little extra money out of the account, I can manipulate any bank statement to read what I want it to read. The court must make sure that it's a real bank statement. It came from the bank, and that's how they know when it's original or it's printed by a bank. So they'll ask specifically, hey, this wasn't an original, or we want an original, or something of that nature. Okay, we're 3 minutes over, so people who can stay, please stay. If you can't, I understand. And I wish you the best. I did put my email address in the chat. So if you need to contact me or ask me a simple question, I'm available. Sometimes it takes me a day or two to answer because I'm either trying to get work done or teaching classes, but I will answer you. So capital changes only has to do if you have a stock account. Um, and it's specifically like sometimes stock accounts, they do what's called a split, or say you do a sale of a big stock and then you split it and change it to another. You would want to report all of what you did with that. And this is the place you would indicate it. But this is not, it's not normal that you have a bunch of capital changes. You kind of just let their stock account kind of go, but not, you're watching it, but you're not making a whole bunch of changes. You're not trying to be a stockbroker for your conservatee. That's a very dangerous thing to get into. So be very careful about um, selling and buying. I had a guardianship account where the dad thinks he's a stock guy because he's bought and sold a few things. And so daily he was buying and selling. That is an accounting nightmare. First, I want to go there with it. But dad lost all kinds of money and it did not turn out well for him. He had very good intentions, but I let's just say I'm not sure he really knew what he was doing and ended up losing a lot of his son's money, and that kind of got ugly. So please try and avoid doing that. A statement of estate liabilities. This is just has to do with the house sale and there was interest that had to be paid on the loan or what the loan amount is. You're not going to usually know this information. You're going to know they have a mortgage and you're paying that mortgage, but you might not necessarily know what the interest rate is or how it's set up, and or how it's done or things like that. I I caution conservatorships where older people seem, and I absolutely hate it, but people do it, is that reverse mortgage stuff. Because the problem you have is the minute the conservatee no longer resides at that residence, but they reside at a care home after I think about 6 months, I think it is, that entire loan, if it's a reverse mortgage, is due right now. If you can't pay it, they want to foreclose. It's really ugly, but a lot of people do it because they get cash or somebody talks them into it or somebody says, hey, you're having trouble paying your mortgage right now. We could do a reverse mortgage. We could get you cash. You end up using that cash and you're not cautious about it, then you use all that cash and then you have really not a whole lot left and they call the loan. How are you going to come up with 124,000 to pay off that reverse mortgage because they went into a care facility? Those get ugly and you've got to do what you got to do, but you would report all of that in this space here. Request for special notice. Anybody in the entire, probably world, I think it's US, but world, can pay $40 and file a document with the court that is called a request for special notice. You typically see these in probate estates where beneficiaries take an inheritance advance. I caution against those too. Those are very ugly, but if you're homeless and you need money right away, they're the best thing for you. Usually, the inheritance advances, for instance, you go ask for 10 grand of an inheritance advance, they will charge you 20,000 or double the amount you're taking. And they'll entice you and make you feel better and say, if you pay this back in 3 months, you only have to pay 25%. If you pay it back in 6 months, you only have to pay 50%. If it goes a year, you have to pay back 100%, or, double. And 9 times out of 10, a probate will never close and distribute within 12 months. Not happening. Just not the way the court set the hearings, not the way the cases are going to go. So those inheritance lenders know when they're loaning you money, they're getting double their money back. They know it ahead of time because they know how long probates take. So when they give you that loan, they'll file a request for special notice, which means every single time you file a document on this case, you must send them a copy, because they paid that $40.50. Now, I could go to any case I want. If it looks interesting to me and I just want to follow it, I could pay $40.50 and watch your case. I don't have to be involved in the case. I don't even have to know you or any parties of the case. I can pay $40.50 and get a request for special notice and get copies of all the documents that you file on this case. Why would somebody do that? I don't know. I have heard people that, for instance, if you sell houses for dirt cheap, or you're one of those companies that do cheap, quick house sales, you might do a request for a special notice on a conservatorship because you know that older person is going to end up in a home. And when they do end up in the home, I'm going to send you notice and go, hey, I can sell your house, or hey, I'll buy your house for pennies on the dollar. Choose me, pick me, blah, blah, blah. And that's the way I could generate business. So I don't see it often, but you do see it occasionally. So be mindful of that. If anybody files a request for special notice, you get a copy. You will have to indicate here that you do have somebody who filed a request for special notice. You have to give their name. A lot of times it's Franchise Tax Board. It could be Internal Revenue Service. If they owe back taxes, it could be, people's names. It could be hospitals that you owe them money. It could be anybody, right? And so you will have to indicate that here. Then we are done with the petition, and we are telling the court, lastly, what do you want the court to do? Like, I've told you the story of what happened during my accounting. So now what do you want me to do? Do you want me to look at it, throw it in the garbage? What do you want me to do? And I'm being sarcastic. That's not what they're thinking. They're thinking, please tell me what you want me as the judge to do. So this is what's considered the prayer. So whether you're religious or not, it has nothing to do with the word prayer, really. It doesn't mean you're going to your Catholic church and confessing all your sins. Trust me, please don't confess all your sins to the court. They really don't want to hear that. So it's not the same type of prayer. So you're going to write here, wherefore I, as the conservator, pray that the court does these things. One, I want this account approved and settled, because once the court approves and settles it, you no longer have liability for any of those transactions because the court approved it. Right. Okay. Until the court approves it, you still have liability. So I pay a PG&E bill that's $500, and that's not a normal, and it's not unusual these days and times. So I pay $500 for PG&E, and maybe I find out that the PG&E bill was in one of the kids' names who was also living with the conservatee. So it really wasn't the conservatee's PG&E bill. Well, I'm in trouble because I just paid somebody else's bill technically. Um, the court, until the court approves it, you're liable. So if the court comes back and says you shouldn't have paid that bill, you've got to pay the money back, even though you sent the bill off and the PG&E cashed it. You're responsible for
I have
paying.
one question. These statements assume that you're pulling money from their estate. What if you're paying like a majority of, the stay, like what are
Right.
you
Then
paying?
you're going to ask for reimbursement.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So next thing you're going to ask is that a court approves and settles all the acts that I've shown in my accounting. So if I sold the car, sold the house, maybe I only got dividends and interest and I didn't sell anything, I just paid bills. You're still asking the court to approve that and release you of the liability of everything you did during the account period. I also want the court, and I'm going to ask for it separately. You may not ask for it separately, but some people like to. I'm going to ask specifically that the court approves the sale of the automobile, even though I sold it for a loss. I'm going to ask the court to approve the sale of the furniture, even though I really don't have to ask for that. I put it in the accounting, and if the court approves the accounting, they're going to approve the sale of the car and the furnishings. So then lastly, I'm going to put that I wish the court to approve, and I apologize, Amazon must be in my office because my dog is barking. So I'm asking the court to reimburse me or allow me to collect that $500 fee for my conservatorship that I asked for up above. That 500 might be 5,000, might be 1,000, might be 2,000, could be any other denomination. But I must ask for the court to approve this, and I cannot pay myself until the judge signs this, because the judge may say, yeah, I'm not giving you 500 for that. I'll give you 100 for that. And you have to take what the judge compensates you. I don't see that often, but it has happened a few times where somebody's asked for $100 an hour and the court says, I don't really feel what you did was worthy of 100 an hour. So instead of 5,000, I'm only going to give you 2,500 and pay you at $50 an hour, which is a standard rate or something like that. They won't really say why, they'll just change this number that you have put in here. Okay, in this case, I also have to ask for the attorney to be paid. Remember, that's up top. If you don't use an attorney, you would not indicate you're asking the court to pay an attorney, right? That would not be something that you asked. And then you also ask that the court grant any other relief they deem proper. Always put that in there. That's basically a respectful thing that you're saying, court, and anything I missed that you want to add, please go for it and add it in here. A lot of times what I've seen they do add is when your next accounting's due, they'll they'll indicate in here they want you to increase a bond. They'll indicate in here whatever they wish to do. A lot of times you'll also see, and Bonita, I see you, honey. Give me 1 second and I'll get right to you. They will cross this section out. They will attach a blank kind of looking form. They'll handwrite in what they want to add, and then they won't sign it until the very bottom of that form. So that's also done. that way. Go ahead, Benita. Hun, what was your question?
It's very, very minor, just a couple of things. I noticed in the prayer, we're asking for affirmative confirmation of the sale of the automobile, the furniture and furnishings, but not the real estate, which seems kind of odd.
Right. Honey, I skipped over that because I just didn't want to mention it. You are correct. This this book was written many, many years ago by attorneys, and what it has not been updated. And so we, especially me, because I'm not an attorney, I can't give legal advice technically. I can't. So I have to follow the form that's in the book. So
Gotcha.
you are absolutely correct. You did see it. I saw it also. You would add it in here, but in this sample, it was not added.
Gotcha. Okay, second minor question. Since the court requires the original bank statements, either I have to be okay with having copies, or I need to go to the bank to get replicated bank authorized statements to give to the court or for me to keep, or
You are correct, sweetheart. Well, no, for you to keep, you can keep copies. Who
okay.
cares?
So
The
okay.
court must have originals or know it's some type of an original, meaning it was issued by the bank.
Okay. And so I'm not, I don't need to be nervous about keeping copies for any other purpose. I don't know, IRS, franchise
No,
tax.
no,
Okay. All right. Thank you for that reassurance.
you're good. And after your accounting is approved, no one will ever come back and ask you for those bank statements or anything to do with the bank statements because the court approved it. That means it's done. Nobody can contest it.
Okay.
Nobody can come back. Now, well, let me just say, I said nobody. Let's say you delivered this petition and you didn't copy all parties or notice all parties and provide them a copy. Then they can still later contest it and write a petition to the court saying, hey, wait a minute, I didn't get a copy of that accounting. I want a copy, and if I have objections, I want my objections to be heard. So, say you purposely left off the husband. Let's just say, let me use a different sample. Say you purposely left off a brother or sister, and that brother or sister knew that there was money in some other bank account that you didn't report, but you kept the brother off because you didn't really want him to see it for some reason because he's cranky or he's going to give you trouble. In that case, yes, the court can force you to open back up the accounting and say, hey, you didn't notice them. He brought up a valid objection about there was another account. We
Right.
need to fix something. Then those bank statements might come back into play, but otherwise, and you're talking one in
Well, and
forever. If
I'm not
you
going to do
know
that kind of behavior anyway. So
exactly. Like
yeah.
I tell everybody, I need to sleep at night. I enjoy going
Yes,
to
ma'am.
bed and sleeping. I don't want to knock at my door ever that I don't know what that knock is for, right? No, thank you. I'd rather do it the first time right and be done. I do the same thing with taxes. I'm not even trying to say I donated $1 if I didn't donate it. No, thank you. I don't want you coming back asking me nothing later. And I will be honest, I'm a horrible liar. That's why I don't do it. You will read it all over my face if I'm lying. I will smile, I will laugh, I will look funny, I will do something. And I, if somebody came back to me a week later and said, this looks funny, I won't even remember the damn lie I originally told. I'm telling you, I won't remember that lie. So it's easier for me just to tell the truth because I'll remember the truth. I won't remember my lie. It's so true with me. Okay, So now you're going to get down to, you're going to date it. Typically, there's another thing wrong with this. This attorney would be up here and this conservator would be up here, so it's mixed, but you're not going to have an attorney, so this whole thing will be out. You won't even put it in there. You will just put yourself as the conservator. And there's only one more other important page, and it's this one. Every single time I get a lot of people who submit an accounting off of this accounting class, and they'll come back and they'll say, Tim, I got examiner notes and I have no idea what they're telling me I need to, provide. Most of the time it will be, please submit a supplemented declaration including a verified report or something of using words verified report. People cannot figure out for the life of them what that means. And the minute you show it to me, I know instantly what it means. See this beautiful page right here? You did not include it. This is the only time, as you notice, coming back up here, you're just putting date in your name. You're not saying, I declare under penalty of perjury, I testify under oath if I have to. You're not saying anything. The court wants that. So here is what's called the verification page. And this you can copy word for word. It's perfect as it is. I am the conservator, I am the administrator, I am the executor, I am the guardian, I am the whatever you are. And you're stating, I declare under penalty of perjury, under the laws of the state of California, that the information I'm stated within this petition and the accounting is true and correct. And I stand on that and I will sign it. Now, later, if you're found to have lied when you signed this verification, you realize you got to deal with the consequences of what you just did because you declared to the court that I am not lying, I'm being honest as I possibly know. Now, that does not mean, for instance, something came up, especially if, like, I prepare an accounting or a petition, something came up that the person didn't tell me about, or didn't tell the attorney, or something like that. I can't be responsible for something they just failed to tell me and we learn it later. I will state, hey, by the way, I did not know this in the beginning. I learned this later. Here I am. I'm going to correct it. I'm going to make it right, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean you lied under oath by signing this and then finding out later you missed an asset or something. That doesn't mean you lied, honestly. It means you just didn't know. And it's okay. You're allowed sometimes to not, you just didn't know. You found out later. That's okay. Just don't purposely sign this knowing that the information within your accounting is false. And so that's it. One thing in the sample I will then do is create a blank page where this entire thing is blank. I'll go down to about line 24 or 25. I'll type the words in big letters, usually using the font of 26. I will say exhibit A, B. Remember up top I said we have exhibits because our accounting has to be one exhibit at least. If I'm turning in an expense reimbursement, that will be another exhibit. If I'm going to pay an attorney and they do a timesheet, that's another exhibit. If I want to do I'm asking for a lot of money for conservator fees, and I want to do a schedule showing date, time, what I did, and it's long, then might include that as an exhibit. So I'm going to create exhibit pages where I just say exhibit A, exhibit B, exhibit C. And then once I print this all, I will put the exhibits behind that page. So my accounting exhibit A, I'll have exhibit A sheet, and then my accounting pages will go underneath it. And then I'll have exhibit B, and then my whatever pages I want to add will go after. And that is how you will submit the petition for approval of the accounting. You will get an accounting date, usually about 3 months out. But you have to remember, you also have to have an order, which is not part of the class. You would have to look up how to complete an order. The order basically just matches, because as you notice in the petition, there's no place for the judge to sign this. None. Where do you see it? There, judge has nowhere to sign, right? So a judge can't approve a petition. They can only approve an order. So basically what you'll do is in the order, you'll repeat a few things that you listed in your petition, specifically, as I go up, specifically this section, period of account, I'll repeat. And then, sorry, and then you'll skip all the center section and you're going to repeat the prayer in your order. So my order would say, it is ordered, all in caps. And then, like, I'll repeat all of this section right here, except, and I'll even include this section, whatever the court wishes to. Then I'll leave this blank line and then leave this clear, and then put comma and judge or something of that nature for my order. So it's very similar to the petition, but not exactly. So that includes please note in the sample, this is a sample of how you could submit confidential bank statements. I myself, again, you would use your header name, not Rex's, and all of this would remain the same. I typically, right here, will write first confidential in big letters, and then my second line will be original bank statements. I also give details, like I will write original bank statements. If I have a bunch, I'll write like Wells Fargo, March 8th through, because sometimes if you get multiple accounts, you have to realize not all counts will end on the exact date, but you have to get one or the other. So one Wells Fargo may end on March 7th. And that's the other thing, just a quick note about an accounting. When I do an accounting, and the accounting starts like on a March 8th, right? You have to start it the day you are appointed. But when I end my accounting, even though with the example we gave, it ended on March 7th, which equaled exactly 1 year. Instead, if my bank statement ends on the 31st or the 30th or the 15th, I will actually extend the accounting to the end of my bank statement so that the next time I do an accounting, I'm starting with a brand new fresh bank statement, right? I'm not taking bits and pieces of two bank statements, like one half of it I've already turned in, the other half I have to account for. I will just end it later when the bank statement ends. And then my next accounting would go from, so say I ended it March 31st. My second accounting is going to start April 1, and then I'm going to still end it on March 31st, but 2 years later. Does that part make sense to you? You are allowed to do it that way. And to me, it's very much easier because I'm ending at a bank statement. You can't go under the amount of time, but you can go over the amount of time and include a longer account. statement period. I'm ready for questions. Is everybody like so confused? Do you like it? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Most people are going to say, oh.
Yeah, I had two questions.
Yes, go for
Yeah,
it, hon.
sorry. They're in the comments section, but what were the exact form numbers for proof of delivery? So the conservatee needs to receive, that there's a hearing, and then there's also, I think there's two, right, that need to be submitted. Two forms for like notice of hearing.
Notice of hearing. They get a lot of notices in between.
Yeah.
There could be when, like, you submit an inventory and appraisal, you have to submit a different
Yeah,
notice.
I just know for Contra Costa County, there's like two forms that are required.
No, sir. We're teaching for Contra Costa County.
That's right. Okay, and then let me see. Oh, the pleading paper, is there a template or is this
Yes,
something?
honey.
Yeah.
Search on the web and just type in pleading paper, and tons of them will come up.
Okay.
They'll come up in Word if
Yeah.
you use Word.
Yeah.
But I think there's a different one for Word for Windows as opposed to Word for Mac.
And you have to, I mean, obviously, maybe include the pleading paper with a declaration, right? Like,
You are correct.
yeah.
Everything that, anytime you submit anything to the court, keep this in mind. If it is not on a specific form, it must be on pleading paper, because they want this blank square right here. See this blank space?
Here, this stamp.
They want to put their stamp there. So
What
they
about
want,
for the Excel spreadsheet? So I think Rex had shown kind of the alternative to using the state forms.
but
So yeah,
But remember, honey, your Excel, if you're going to use that, is only an attachment. So it's only
sure.
an
An exhibit A.
exhibit.
Okay.
So it's not your initial filing paper.
Sure. I just
So,
wanted to make sure that they don't have to put a stamp on everything. It's just an
no,
exhibit.
honey,
Yeah.
they only put a stamp on the first page.
Okay. Sounds good.
Any other questions? Please note, for ones who haven't, you can take this class as many times as you want until you get it. I see you, Miss Amy, up there. You're laughing, or because likely second time or even third. You can take it as many times as you want. You're going to get a little bit more information every time you take it, or you're going to be reminded.
Yeah. It's either that or I'm going to hire somebody who knows how to do it and just review it, because I can't fathom doing this for
And
my
again,
father's estate. It's just too big.
and with something like that, um, sometimes I know it's an expense, and it's an expense that's paid for by the conservatorship, or it's not for by you. But sometimes you can attempt to do it yourself, and that's what we're teaching. So you have those skills. But you can also take this class, because if you hire somebody else, and I'm just saying, say you hired me, you're
Sure.
able to look at what I produce and tell if it's right or wrong.
Sure. Right.
Like, you're able to go back and go, that's not how an accounting's done. I know how it, I may
Right.
not know
Right.
these specific details, but I got enough to know that this doesn't look accurate, or
Right. Right.
this has to be on this form or that form.
Sure.
And typically, after somebody does, especially if it's a complicator or one, usually if they include stock accounts, because I have to watch, and a lot of stock accounts buy and sell daily, and then your carry value changes or it increases or it decreases, or if they split the stock, it gets extremely complicated. And again, there are times I sit and ruffle with it. I can't get it to balance, and I'm going, come on now. And I have to pull it all apart. And, but it's only because I have so much experience. I've seen how they go, what they do, I can't describe all of that in a class. I can't give you every detail that's in my head that I know. I just can't.
So is there an association maybe where people like you, like, you've got the bar association. Is there an association or they can refer, or at least an organization, like
If
the
you do a search online in
yeah.
California for probate accountings or conservatorship accountings
Okay,
or something like that, quite a
that's
few
where.
people, including myself, will pop up.
Okay, great. Great. Sounds good. Thank you.
There will be many. Again, you have to siphon out like what you're looking for, everybody has their own fee. Nobody's going to be the same rate.
Sure.
Everybody's going to have their ways of doing it. You to So what is called an LDA or a legal document assistant? Yes, we have an association. I'm actually part of the board of that association. And it's called CALDA, CAL is in Larry, D is in dog, A is in apple,
Okay.
.org.
Mhm.
And that lists all legal document assistants who are registered with the state of California and can prepare court forms for people, pro pers, or people
Okay.
who don't know how to prepare court forms.
Right.
There are a few of us who do know the accounting that are on that board. And so when you're looking for somebody to prepare an accounting, you can get a firm, like they might be a CPA firm or a law firm, that just prepares the accounting and hands it over to you. They don't prepare the petition, the order, and answer examiner notes.
Right.
Um, but if it's somebody like an LDA, who basically someone like myself,
Hmm.
we usually state, okay, with the accounting comes the petition. Do you also want a petition prepared? With
Right.
the accounting, there's also an order. Do you want an order prepared?
Hmm.
With the accounting, do you also want to continue us on? And if there are any examiner notes, would you like us to help you answer those examiner notes?
Sure.
Um, so many places can do an accounting, and many places say they can do an accounting. Like many people think a CPA firm can do an accounting. A
Right.
CPA does not know how to do a court accounting.
I
They
see
know
that.
how to do a tax return accounting,
Sure.
right? Totally different thing.
Right.
They don't have any idea what a petition is supposed to look like. They have no idea what an order would look like. They have
Yeah.
no idea how to answer examiner notes. They have no idea. So that's a one-stop shop. They're only going to give you the accounting and then you take it on. So
Gotcha.
when looking for somebody like that, those are questions that are really important to you.
Okay, very good. I really appreciate the info.
And now our next class, I think, is in 2 months. If you wish to take it, please sign up. You can take it. Typically, the samples and all the information are exactly the same. Again, Rex says we don't even change our jokes. But we do change a tiny bit, or I change because I forget what I even talked about during the first one. So you can take it as many times as you want. I think there's a sheet if you wish to give advice, like it should be shorter. You should talk faster. Anything like that. You can give that advice. Typically, it goes to the Contra Costa law library, and the shareholders that run the Contra Costa Law Library, which are typically judges, will look at those comments and say if there was a bunch that said, this class is garbage, it taught me nothing, they would likely discontinue the class, like, right? So, you know, we will take whatever kind of comments you want to give. You don't like the color of my hair? Sorry, I can't help that. Or my lipstick, or so, maybe I'll change that. But really, it's just comments on how you feel about the class, and you can do them or not do them, doesn't change. I know Rex does offer that if you wish to email him and you want a certificate of completion, you don't turn it into the court, you don't give it to anybody, but if you just want it because it makes you feel better, he will give those out if you send an email to him. But besides that, I'm ready to log off and go have lunch. I'm sure y'all are hungry also. I thank you for your time. And if I see you, I see you. If I don't, I don't. And I wish you the best in your endeavors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. Very informative. Appreciate
Thank you, honey. And if you want to come back, make sure you come back. If you have a quick question, I can try and help answer for you. But if not, again, I wish you all the best and hope this was helpful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.